How you handle your lawn care impacts our water and air. In 1 hour, a gas
Check, check. Hey, all right. I'm hoping Stephen can hear us. We've had a few mishaps. It is 6 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Salinas,
Here.
Councilmember Click,
Here.
Councilmember Saper,
Here.
Councilmember Bailey,
Here.
Councilmember McGrone,
Here.
Councilmember Fitzgerald,
Here.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Salinas. All right, now we have the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, item 5, comments from the public. If you wish to make a comment, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Am an architect and owner of K. Warman Architecture at 1735 Swift here in North Kansas City. I appreciate the time this evening to address the council. I'm here to tell you a little bit about my business and as part of the kind of ongoing work that the Business Council is doing to meet and talk to the City Council, introduce ourselves, and tell you a little bit about what we do. Got a little slideshow going. There's nothing really particular that I want to point out about the slides, just some examples of some projects we've done. This is a project that we did for the Disabled American Veterans in Kansas City, Missouri. Go ahead and we can just run through the slides. This is a project we did for Cerner, a North Kansas City, formerly North Kansas City company, Cerner. This was a project that we did a very long time ago for the city of North Kansas City. It's the addition of the fire station. This is a new project that we have in North Kansas City that is a very unique type of project. It's called Elevator. It's a co-working space of office and warehouse that would be is under construction right now. It's a renovation to the old Fuji Film building, and it's right there behind Sonic on 14th. This was some interior renderings that were done and working with the Miller family when they did iWorks. We were the architect for that project. This is a renovation of a project up in Gladstone that was an old, not very attractive shopping center that now is a much better looking shopping center. So that's just the variety of projects that we do. One thing I want to tell the council, and I very much appreciate your time, I'm licensed in a number of states around the country, board certified, and do a lot of work, obviously in the Kansas City metropolitan area, work with many of the municipalities and cities in our area. And there's probably not a codes administration department that I would rather work with than North Kansas City's. It's a commercial development is a tough thing to navigate, developers and folks that are building projects for the first time. And oftentimes, cities, codes people and planning people can come off not very helpful, not very supportive, almost make my clients feel like they're not really interested in having them develop in their city. I never get that feeling in North Kansas City when I bring a client to meet with the staff, when I work with David Harris, and I have to give a big shout out to Megan Summers. The first time I ever spoke with her on the phone, I asked her a question, and she said, and this has stuck with me, she said, "I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out and call you back." And that's huge. You have no idea how many cities don't do that. So we really appreciate what you guys do. We appreciate the staff and the support that they give the businesses in this community, and particularly me. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions? Kathy, thank you so much. Your reputation precedes you, and I believe you were involved with the memorial project out here as well. Is that right? Not this one? Okay. I thought I saw Warman Architect. Okay. Hey, we'll give you a little credit either way. I've heard a lot of good things about your work around town from various people who are doing projects, big and small. So thank you for the work you do in town, and thanks for shining a light on our codes department. They are top tier. So really appreciate that. Further public comments. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. You all know me, but for the record, George Schluter, 800 East 23rd Avenue. I want to talk to you about the proposed bike walk plan. My wife and I are opposed to it. Initially, I was proposed because we were going to take out 68 trees between 23rd and 25th on Iron, and probably that many or more between Armour and 23rd on Howell. But then I decided I need to look at this on a bigger picture on the thing. And I see a lot of problems related to this. One, we have school buildings on both sides of Howell, a grade school and a high school. We have buses that are there twice a day at those schools, and also a lot of parents who park along the north side or the east side of Howell, picking up their children at Norclay. Picked a very busy intersection at 23rd and Iron and Howell to try and deal with taking a bike walk through it. Howell from 21st to Armour is a two-way street. It's narrow. It means it's going to have to deal with that, or there's got to be some major adjustments to that street. The extreme high cost of this, over $800,000 for a bike lane, seems very big to me and more than it needs. And from what I've understood, there has not been much input, if any, from people involved with Bike Walk Kansas City or our local citizens. I think there's a solution, and that's a different route. And I'd like to kind of throw it out to you. If you would picture Clark Ferguson Drive and Howell, the proposed, or at least what you've approved, I believe, is a bike walk path inside of the park, behind the fence. Come down to Clark Ferguson Drive. Instead of continuing south, let's go east on the south side. It would mean there'd have to be some work done with the school district as far as the parking that exists on the north side of the school, Norclay School building there. But from there on down, there's 10 to 15 feet all the way. You could go on down beyond the school, between the fence of the soccer field and the trees that exist there. There's 15 foot there. Go down almost to where the parking lot of the Parks and Rec is, but before the tree line, turn south, go across there, do a short angle to the path that goes between the Parks and Rec to the Macon Street, 25th Street, and then go on down Macon Street. I think it'd be a lot less expensive. I think it'd be a lot safer for bikers and walkers that they wouldn't be on busy streets. And anyway, I would ask you to reject this plan and have the staff of the city prepare something along those lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further public comments? Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Kathy West. I'm George's neighbor. I live at 806 East 23rd Avenue. George asked me to come tonight because I am a cyclist, and I'm concerned about how bike lane is set up. And I've raised my concerns in the past, and then when we received the agenda and it had the map on it, those concerns came back up again. So, and I really did write this out, and I'm going to deviate, sorry. And it feels really loud, Jesse. Okay.
It's perfect.
Okay. So my concerns in the past have been, first off, the sweep lane. And I was told that the sweep lane at Clark Ferguson and Howe was going to come out. I don't know if anybody has ever had the time to go down and watch what happens on that sweep lane. Cars don't stop. There is a stop sign. They do not stop. Why? Because there's that large brick park sign with a bush behind it. It's almost 5 foot tall because I stood next to it. I drove it today. You can't see unless you pull up into the crosswalk. You can't see to the south. So that's why people are doing that, and it shows that that is not being taken out. So you're going to put a bike lane through that area with small children, what we call them vulnerable road users. They're that 70% of people who are very concerned about riding on a bike on a street. So you're going to put them in the worst possible situation where a motorist possibly can't see them. I was told that that was going to be taken out. It is on the plan. So if it is going to be taken out, we need to get the plan changed and updated. Also, I just lost all my notes. There's two areas. One is in front of the grade school, and one is in front of the library where it does not show the bike path continuing, and maybe that's just an error, but we do need to get that corrected. And my other question is this. That is like one of the busiest residential areas. I know, Jesse's smiling at me. I can't look at him. It's very concerning to me to put those type of riders into that situation. It's going to be uncomfortable. And you know what happens when there's a bike lane and it's uncomfortable? Nobody rides it. We're going to spend $800,000 on a lane that people are going to be uncomfortable and they're not going to ride. And people like me that ride on a more consistent basis, we use Howell all the time because it's great fun to come down Holmes and hit Howell and come down through there. We're not going to jump on a bike lane because we're going 20 miles an hour. We are not going to get on there and ride, and you don't want us on there. My suggestion, George and I have obviously had this conversation, is to take that left on the Clark Ferguson. It's already marked with Sharrows, which is a shared lane, and so that means that you're going to see a cyclist, you're going to see a car. So it's already marked correctly. Go to the stop sign. We put a short path over to the wheel park. The wheel park is already in place. The sidewalk is already in place, and it'll dump you on Macon. The beautiful thing about Macon is it's mostly one-way streets, and it has stop signs. Every single street, 25th, 24th, 23rd, 22nd, and 21st, all have a stop sign. So you are not going to change the traffic pattern. People are already comfortable with stopping. It will do a little bit of street calming because it's going to be something different. You're going to ride through a nice residential neighborhood, and it's going to put you right on the Armour bike lane. Quick question, has anybody really walked or cycled that path, the proposed path? Amy, have you? Can I ask you, is that acceptable?
Yeah. I have not biked it because I prefer not to. I just stick to the road. But my favorite way to go is on Macon. That's the way I travel from Ward 4 over to,
Okay.
I think I would get in trouble, though, if I tried the path that's in Macon Park, so don't set me up right now.
I follow all the rules. I think that's probably enough said right there.
Thank you.
So I think we need to, I'm not done. Close, Jesse, really close. I have 30 seconds.
Go for it.
If you wanna go for a ride, I suggest before you say, yes, we're gonna do this, you need to walk it, you need to ride it. If you don't have a bike, I can get you a bike. Let's be very deliberate in doing these choices. And that means getting out there, it's hot right now, I know. Getting out there, feeling it, smelling it, understanding what you're doing. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thanks.
Thank you. Further public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to the regular agenda, item 7.
Update on the Perina Mill demolition work and discussion regarding next steps.
Who's got this one?
I got it.
Shoo.
Good evening, Mayor and the City Council members. In front of you is a memo that with a few attachments to it. They're talking about the most recent update to the formerly known Perina Mill, which the city has been under demolition work for quite a few years. And since last year, we entered into a contract with ISW to demo the 2 metal silos at the southernmost point. At this point, they have completed their work, so we're wrapping up the final payments. So this is a great time for us to talk a little bit about what's the next step. Back in May, city staff has received an updated structural engineer report, and this is also attached to the memo. And on the report, there was clear recommendations from the structural engineers regarding what the city shall be doing moving forward. Which is to demolish the rest of the remaining structures. At this point, staff has made a recommendation that we recommend the City Council to move, to provide a guidance or direction to staff to issue a request for proposals for the demolition of and removal of the remaining structures at this particular location. The beauty for doing such at a minimum is to give city staff an idea about what the real proposal of the methodology and the cost might look like to demolish this, and if the city chose to move forward from staff perspective, resource-wise, what do we need to prepare for? With that, I'm open to any questions you might have.
What questions do we have? So looking at this memo, the pictures are pretty rough. We got some exposed rebar, we got some very cracked concrete, and those are large, imposing towers that sit in a place between railroad tracks, posing a danger, and with the engineer's report saying that it needs to come out, I don't see any other way to move forward than to issue this RFP. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yeah, my only question would be is how soon we can get it down. I think it's a danger, and it's just an accident waiting to happen. I think in the past, people have been caught trespassing and walking around there, and I just think the sooner that we can move forward and remove it, the better. So.
And it's been a pending item in our budget every year since I was first elected to City Council 6 years ago. It's not getting any cheaper either. So the longer we wait, the higher that cost gets. Councilmember Saker.
We saddled ourselves with that property, and at this point, there's nothing else really to do except move forward with it. We're stuck, even though the cost is going to be quite high.
I would refute that we saddled ourselves with it. To be more specific, it was once it became a known danger to us, it became a liability to us to make sure that that did not pose a public threat. And so we took a measure to purchase that property, and now it's on us to demolish it. Go ahead.
Well, it wasn't, the threat was to the surrounding railroad, which owns all the property around it. The general public was under no exposure. So we actually did a solid for the railroad by taking over something that really probably should have been more of their responsibility. But it is what it is, and we need to move forward. I agree completely.
Would you like to make a point of clarification, Mr. Barzee? Yeah, he does.
Briefly, we met, it's been now a couple of years, 3 years maybe ago, with representatives of the railroad. They even sent someone here from Atlanta, Georgia, from the Norfolk Southern, and they agreed it needed to come down. And this was prior to the city owning the property. They agreed to it, they needed it to come down, but as most businesses would say, we'd really like to help, but we don't have anything budgeted for this, okay? But the liability here, Mr. Saper, is also, would have been on the city of North Kansas City, whether we owned the property or not, because it had become an attractive nuisance, and we had people, we know for a fact, climbing up there, okay, and painting signs up there, et cetera. And it was not safe, and we've eliminated some of that emergency need to get rid of things that would allow people to get up there, but I'd submit to you that more than likely, the ingenious youth will figure out still a way to probably get to the top. And while I'm talking about it, the intent on our part, after discussion, et cetera, and after reading the engineer's report that we've recently received, would be to go out to bid, and I have been working on the contract along with others, but I've been working on it, that we would go out to bid and it would have an alternate as well. One would be to tear it all down and remove everything, and the other would be to address what I'll call the western portion of this, where you do see the rebar, where you see some holes through it, and that after talking to Mr. Harris, who's probably the most knowledgeable about of any of our city employees, that was his suggestion in case the number comes back so outlandishly high that, you know, you have to look at things a little bit differently. So we would anticipate getting from all bidders two numbers. One, the number to do it all, and the other one would be to do what I'll just call the western half of it. It's not half, but the western portion of it that's in the worst shape. It's not easy is the problem. We've known that from the beginning because of the location. It's surrounded, you're right, by railroad tracks. And it's whoever does it, it's not going to be an easy project. We know that.
Appreciate that. Any further comment? Yes, sir.
Just a question. I agree it needs to come down at some point. I don't see another use for it. But in this report, there are photos of a number of also openings, unsecured areas relatively low to the ground. Do we have a means to get that temporarily, more secure while we work through this RFP process?
Yes, so the photos were taken in May. That was before the final staging was all moved out of the site. So at this point, as far as we know, all the lower spot has been secured. So the photos were taken before those secure activities has been taken.
Yeah.
And I can find newer photos for you all, and if you're interested, I can get an updated photo for you all.
Yeah, if it's secure, that's all I wanted to hear. So glad it doesn't still look
We
like
secured
those
it
pictures.
to the max allowable,
Mhm.
and there are always people trying to break in to
Yeah.
this property, as you all know. So we're trying our best to secure it as much as possible at this point. But yes, it has been taken now.
As Mr. Barzee noted, I mean, it's been tagged at the very top. Somebody who's trying to get in and wants to get in is going to get in. They're going to cause a danger to themselves and others, and it's best that we go ahead and take care of it. It will be a gut punch. It might be 2 gut punches. I think it's wise to phase it if the numbers are that way. So do we need a vote of the council or just general direction to bring back the RFP? You want to do a thumbs up RFP?
General direction is good. I mean,
Thumbs up?
everything once, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, got what you need?
Really quick.
Yes.
Have we posted anything on like, sites that might want like some of the scrap pieces or junk that's coming off of it, some of those covers, some of the metal, any of those scraps? I'm looking at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I just wonder how far we could push this. $400 to $600 a load, guys. May add up, but
That-
keep it sub-mill. Make me excited.
The emergency portion that has already been contracted for and taken down and removed contained most of that metal that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the two large steel silos, how can I put it? Well, they were covered with asbestos, so the commercial value of them was not nearly as great as it may have otherwise have been, but we actually had to pay extra to get those down because of the asbestos.
Right.
Okay. Linda?
Yeah, it's a great idea, but I'd be worried about having anyone else on that property just because of the danger, letting anyone come pick things up. So I don't know. I think the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost us. So anyway, that's it.
Seems like we got direction to bring back the RFP. Very good.
Issue the RFP?
Sure, issue.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to see it. Put it
All right.
out there,
Thank you.
as Tom described. Thank you for that clarification. Moving on to item 8.
Discussion regarding the House Street shared use path, final plans and cost estimate.
Shu?
Yep. Good evening, Mayor and Council Member again. This item in front of you is actually the final plan updates and the cost estimate that we have received from Wilson Company as the ending phasing of the designing component. The conceptual plan was first adopted in the master plan. I'm just giving a little background since I have heard different comments over here. And if you think, let's cut it short, just tell me about it. It is about 3/4 miles length going from 32nd Avenue all the way to Armour Road. When it was initially planned, it was phased into north and south portions. So there were 2 phases, 2 portions. And it was back in 2023, I believe it was in a discussion that let's join those portions together and make it one project. And so in 2024, for the fiscal year, we put it in the budget to do 1 phase. And then we got the city council's approval to move forward with a contract with a task order with Wilson Company to design the construction documents for us. So throughout the process, we had quite a few meetings with the city council at midterm to just give everybody an update. And we also had a joint meeting with the Parks Board at that time, trying to find out what is the best route for everybody. And then I also had a citizens' comments, and we brought this particular project over to the Bounce and Balance. That's where the city's, I'm doing a little commercial time, the city's budget season, and what the city does a Bounce and Balance every year, talk about all the capital improvement projects. Whoever have questions are welcome to talk to staff. And we did some pop-up events and trying to gather some information. So with all that said, we're getting close to the final design stage at this point. I do have the engineer with us to talk about the technical matters if anybody have questions. At this point, staff is merely asking for recommend approval for going out for a construction bid and construct the entire route at once. But we are also open to looking at other options or alternatives at this point if you wish to provide directions. That's it.
Very good. Thank you for that. I have spent some time with these plans this week. I had a discussion with Shu. I've spoken with Mr. Schluter on the phone to understand his concerns, and he parlayed Kathy's concerns as well. So thank you for coming and making those comments. I share a number of those concerns that you enumerated. I'm taking a step back. The idea of putting bikes on pavement along with cars, the idea would be to avoid as many conflict zones and as much traffic as possible. And this design does sort of put those bikes onto Iron, which is one of the busiest residential streets in North Kansas City. I like the general idea of taking it from 32nd all the way to Armour, making a connection to the bike lanes that we have in place along Armour Road. But I don't particularly like this route because of the busyness, because of the multiple conflict zones with each street, 23rd, 4th, 5th. crossing in front of the library, having 2 more intersections to cross. Parents queuing at Norclay now, as Norclay is being used as a de facto elementary school as each one in the district gets renovated. Tree removal was brought up, and then cost to remove curbs and move pavement. It's a pretty heavy lift project coming in a little over $800,000. What I'd like to do, and I was part of the group that directed staff to bring it in one phase because they didn't want to have an orphaned segment as we've seen Armour Road, and if we built the part through the park, we could have an orphaned segment. That said, the part through the park does not seem to be what's up for debate here. We've had a joint meeting with the Parks Department. I'm curious if anyone has questions or concerns about the northern phase from Clark Ferguson at the corner of the park to 32nd Avenue. Does anyone have trouble with that one? We've had sign-off and buy-in from the Parks Board. We've had that joint meeting. This is the red piece on the bottom there. Does anyone have concerns with that one? Mr. Fitzgerald.
Might be inferring where this is going a little bit here. I like the concept of this. I'd like to get something built to connect our bike infrastructure along Armour. That being said, one of the common criticisms I hear of the bike infrastructure is that it's piecemeal, so I'm hesitant to move forward with only the northern portion if we don't have a plan on how to connect it to the infrastructure and bike lanes we currently have.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be my comment. I do recall in the Parks Board meetings is that I would say pretty unanimously, they said, you know, we're for it. We've got to the point where we feel comfortable with the design, but please don't do this with a disconnect. We'd want it to all be together or hold off so that we know that it's not just on its own island away from the connectability.
That's valuable feedback from a Parks Board liaison position. Doing your job. Thank you. One thing I know, having ridden my bike a number of times through this exact stretch of Howell Street, I am on the northern end of town, and the portion of Howell that the park route would bypass is the least comfortable spot to ride. There's people backing out. Most of the people who are parking there don't live in town and aren't aware of the general traffic flow. It's a real gambit to run. And that's why I favor having this bypass in place, whether or not we have a firm plan on the next segment, because the part past Clark Ferguson south is a much more comfortable ride. It's wide, fewer cars are in that area as you move down Howell Street. And that kind of leads me to the next part of the discussion. But any other concerns with this northern piece? Councilmember Salinas.
So the neighbors that I've talked to also have concerns, and since we don't have a plan, I guess, in place, they're thinking that maybe we should just wait anyway and see what the Royals are going to do before we spend any more money.
Okay. I see. Yes, Councilmember Click.
Following up with what Kathy was talking about earlier, that segment on the corner of Clark Ferguson where it's like doesn't have good visibility, is that still part of the plan to make that better?
So that's something that I was going to get to, but
Okay.
that's a good question and a great way to look at it. Councilmember Bailey.
Are the cost breakdowns roughly even with the north and south route, and or are we getting a substantial discount by doing them together?
That question, I would defer it to our engineer over here who provided a cost to us.
There he is.
Thank you for your time. Units of work essentially between the north and south side are kind of even. You have a little more pavement on the south side, but it's fairly even in terms of cost.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Alvarez.
Just a quick question. I may be confused, but when you get to the very north end of Howell, and we're going to cross over to the west, are we going to cross on Howell where the cars come down from Holmes? Is that where we're going to cross over? 'Cause I think that's kind of a dangerous intersection as it is right now, because if you're going north on Howell, you don't have to stop. You just can go ahead and turn. Sometimes the cars coming south at that stop sign are supposed to stop. Sometimes they get quite a bit of speed built up and they come on down. So if you add bicycles in there along with that traffic, I think that could be a little hazardous, but I'm not sure if that's where we're planning on crossing over.
Can you mention what you told me about the northern bit there?
Well, sorry, that
Go
last
ahead.
part, I don't know what Shu mentioned
Sure.
when you guys talked, but that intersection, we looked at that with this design, and one of the ideas is to incorporate a stop sign on that third leg that does not currently have a stop sign. It would do a lot of benefit to the traffic pattern there to have it on, if you're going northbound before you cross the levee, to have a stop sign there. The other considerations are there's a trail project being planned that goes over to Riverside, comes over, goes under Highway 9. In the future, that's a very large Metro Green style project that we're, bigger picture, but coming down 32nd, connecting there. Also, I think the apartment complex being built in Kansas City has a trail spur that they've been contemplating. So that coming down, of course, those people are going to want to go to Mackin Park. How is that going to connect? How are people walking across the bridge? That's Kansas City's bridge over the levee, so there'll be a lot more design considerations in that. But all those things considered in the synergy of that node with traffic was kind of, this would be a jumping off point to look at that.
Yeah, and that stop sign is something that's been asked for by residents for a while now. Every town hall I've held that people have mentioned that, why don't we have to stop? Why don't people have to stop? And it's a confusing spot.
I think I'm imagining like LEDs
Oh,
flashing.
yeah, big flags on it.
A lot of new things to people, but
yes. So the way we're looking, this is a great spot right here. Is there a way to say, since we don't know what that would look like, we're not clear on the next phase, would we be stopping this at the edge of Mackin Park as a, get on it the way you best see fit and then continue on?
I think
Okay,
so.
so we could do it that way?
Yeah.
Okay. Good questions. To the other piece, so it seems like everyone's thought through the northern end. Back down at Clark Ferguson, where the slip lane is, excellent point. People do have trouble seeing there. My thought, and this is something that I chatted with Shu about, is there's a concept called the path of desire. So when there's the best example in North Kansas City is at the post office. There used to be a squared off corner, and you would have to walk down to the corner and then around, but people didn't do that. They walked through the grass, and it created this worn path, and eventually we just paved it because that's where people want to be going. And what has been brought up here is one option is running down the side and up Macon, which is, as Amy has mentioned, that's the route she takes. It just feels more natural. That's one route to explore, to go north and south. The other one is one that I've taken multiple times. I've seen others, is shooting straight down Howell rather than coming off at Iron, wiggling in front of the library. So the way I would look at it is coming out of the park, instead of crossing that slip lane and the next lane and the next lanes all the way down, is to come across where Shu has the cursor going at a crosswalk that has been added since these plans were conceived initially. So there's a crosswalk coming off the park that comes down to the north side of 27th Avenue and then moves across. And it's got curb cuts, it's already there. And then from that point, shooting straight down the west edge of Howell. Now, that would take some work with the school district. They do have buses that queue along that road. But once you get further down Howell, it goes one way, and it is a very wide road. So there, in my speaking with Shu, there's room to queue buses. There's even room for cars to pass through with buses queued and a bike lane on there. And the difference here is that we wouldn't be cutting pavement. We wouldn't be moving. There would be no heavy construction. It would be paint on pavement, a much lower lift to test this out. Should be studied. Questions should be asked. But this is what could be workable at a much lower cost and using a more natural route. Yes.
So I agree with the idea of what you're talking about. I think that cutting over near the library and the intersection at 23rd and Iron is kind of, it's a big intersection. There's a lot of traffic there. It's there's trees that I wouldn't want to have to get rid of because they're really beautiful. My concern with it going straight up Howell is that the buses queue there, and you've got high school kids coming out in the morning and in the afternoon, and they're going to be crossing the bike lane and then getting on a bus. So if we could figure out how to put the bike lane on the east side of Howell and run it straight up, I mean, if you're going to have two-way traffic on the east side or the west side, the east side makes more sense because then nobody has to cross the bike lane to get on a bus. And so I'd be in favor of that route because it's the same route, it's just on the opposite side of the street, and you don't have to worry about interference with the kids and the buses in that sense. I'd also be in favor of exploring the Macon option. I think one of the downsides to that is one of the purposes of having a really well-connected bike infrastructure is so that you can get to the places that you want to go. And I think, if people are riding their bikes along Macon, that's a way to get from point A to point B. But if you put it up Howell, it's a way to get from point A to maybe the Splash Park or the library or City Hall or Mackin Park or, all these places that people want to go to and we want people to go to. And then they could ride their bikes there and feel safe because those are protected spaces where they could ride their bikes. So I think that we should look at putting in marked sharrows on Macon so that people are very clear that this is also an alternate bike path. But I think that the main route should still be over on more of this side of the city. And if we could explore running it on the east side of Howell, that would make things a little more safe for the bicyclists and the students at the high school.
And I agree. I think we can do both. I think we can explore both. I don't know that we need to jump at either of them. The east side option on Howell is also interesting because it does avoid buses. It potentially, you have to cross Howell at some point, I think, because the Norclay parents queuing, and then the conflict with the slip lane, Clark Ferguson and 25th.
My question about the Norclay, though, is that's not a permanent elementary school. High school is there forever.
Correct.
The elementary school is used when other places are being renovated. So it's a concern today. It might be a concern next year, but it's not a concern forever. And I don't think we should design our plan around a concern that's not a permanent concern when we have a permanent concern that we need to design around.
And that's a great point. I think having further discussion with the school board on their intent for Norclay. I've heard ideas floated about possibly, drop of one here, North Kansas City Elementary School. So if that happens, again, those are a lot of ifs, but I think discussion with the school would be great. And we happen to have a newly founded Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee that we could run this sort of stuff through, who could take a deep dive into this with some really knowledgeable people. So I guess the question becomes, do we want to bid any of this? Do we want to, my preference, and I understand what you were saying about the parks boards, also their preference, would be to bid the northern piece because it bypasses the absolute worst area to bike. It puts bikes into a green area and then drops them onto a wide, more comfortable area with sharrows well marked. But I am open to bidding none of it as well. Thoughts and ideas? Councilmember Saper.
I'm feeling opposed at this point to just bidding the northern part because, again, it would be, as you phrased it, an orphan segment. And orphan segments tend to not get adopted by the southern sections very often. And we might have that orphan segment around for a long time. And I would, whatever design we come up with, I'd like to do it as one piece.
Okay. Councilmember Groen?
I'm on the fence about it. I think I've almost got hit by a car on Howell on my bike, so I understand, the concern about biking along there. I avoid it entirely if I can. I'm trying to figure out if I would use that segment if it wasn't connected to anything. And I don't think I would. I think we would end up having a wide bike path inside of Mackin Park that very few people are going to use because it doesn't connect to anything. And nobody's going to make a special trip down there just to ride on a quarter mile's worth of pavement. I want this project to happen, but I don't think I want the disruption in the park to happen with no concrete plan on how that's going to connect to the rest of the infrastructure.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Council people, Saper and McGrone said it well on the orphan piece. I won't repeat that, but I also suspect there might be some additional costs if we have to mobilize a construction process 2 times to complete this. And as we've seen from some of the comments tonight, this could use some additional input from our biking community and impacted residents. So I'd like to get a cohesive plan that more people are on board with before incurring costs on this.
Councilmember Clark?
Yeah, I would just further emphasize that the entirety of the Parks Board would prefer this to all be one package. Just to McGrone's point that the disruption alone for Mackin, you know, just saying like, hey, bike lane's coming through, but if it connects to nothing, we have another story to tell. So that's it.
Further comments, questions, concerns? It sounds like we're leaning toward holding off on bidding and having the very first major assignment for the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, who is represented tonight, take this and chew on it, work with Shoe on it, and let us know where we land. Any further thoughts? Okay. Thank you. Right. Moving on to item 9.
Discussion of Burlington water main replacement.
All right, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Wanted to kind of address 2 things here that are tied together. One, as I say, you may or may not know, the Burlington water main has been planned in conjunction with Phase 1 of the Burlington cycle track for years now, many years. That being said, Burlington, as you know, is owned by MoDOT and maintained by MoDOT. Therefore, the cycle track, as it's been designed and everything, has to go through approval from MoDOT. Over the years, even since I've been here, the last 3 years, MoDOT is turning over quite a bit staff. So we just in the last 2 months, I believe, have a new contact at MoDOT for the cycle track project. But with the turnover over the last few years, the requirements have changed as well to have the cycle track. 2 of those I've outlined in the memo through discussions with MoDOT. They basically, to do the project, offered us 2 options to move forward. One was the city taking over all of Burlington, them deeding the whole highway to us, which places a large liability on the city. The other option was that they would deed over the cycle track from the barrier of the cycle track on the west side, kind of the wall, all the way to the east of the buildings, all of the right-of-way. They would deed that over to us. City would own that portion, and then we would be responsible for maintaining their storm sewers underneath. They would still be theirs, though. The drainage, the landscaping. Excuse me. MoDOT, like I said, would retain ownership of the storm sewers and any additions. We'd have to maintain them, everything under the cycle track and in the right-of-way. Driveway permits would be permitted by both, because it's still entering a highway, but it'd be in our control. And then the city would indemnify MoDOT entirely. Again, it's a large liability to be placed on the city. So neither of those options is recommended by staff. Again, it's a large amount of liability to place on the city, and we still haven't worked out all the approvals of the requirements. Kind of leads into that. That being said, the water main is still a high priority. We've had more breaks, more frequent breaks. We need to get going on it. The water master plan, you'll hear about that. Our goal is the 15th, the next meeting. McClure will be here. But what we would like to do, or what we're asking, and Anthony can speak a little more to this, to the task order that we have presented here, we'd like to separate the 2 and get going on the water main. Because it's been put off for a long time in the hopes of doing them together, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I'm going to step back a little bit, unless you have questions about the MoDOT portion. Anthony can fill you in on task order 5.
Task Order 5 looks at taking the water line, making it its own separate project. That obviously involves a little bit more extra design work. In the interim, during the course of this, we've had the Water Master Plan start and get to the end, where we've noticed that Burlington water main is extremely important for the city. It's a very key component to getting water to the south side of the city, which kicks over to the PID, the Paseo Industrial District. There's a lot of industries there that have very large fire suppression systems. Moving water through the city is really reliant on this water main. So as we've done more study on that with the Water Master Plan, again, as Mike said, we'd really like to start moving on getting this redesigned, because it will take time to get it. And it's a very large water line project for the city. So again, it looks like Councilman Saber has some questions.
Yeah, how did you come from 10-inch, which is current, the collapsing 10-inch line?
Sure.
Okay, and then how'd you get to 16? Is that going to be adequate? I'm wondering. Is that too small?
So funny you say that. We just today have some information, because again, the water model that we created with the master plan is looking at many different scenarios. 10-inch is there's parts of that water main that are 110 years old.
It's collapsing.
It's collapsing, yeah. There's a very old standard. 10 inches is not made anymore. You would typically go to 12. When this project was first looked at with the cycle track, it was just decided to make it a 12-inch because that was the most modern size, close enough to a 10. As we got through the water master plan, we're like, oh no, that should probably be a 16. And actually today, as we've been looking at it, probably in some parts closer to a 24.
That's
Yeah, what we'd like to do is actually get started on design so we can get Olson kicked off and moving, but then knowing that we might need to adjust this a little bit, looking at a 24-inch water main at a larger and a bigger portion of that on Burlington. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Was that all you had for us?
It is, yeah, if you have any questions.
Very good. So the MoDOT piece is a constant frustration, obviously. Neither of those options, ownership of the highway is a non-starter. That would be so expensive and liability laden to maintain. And then even owning the right-of-way of the cycle track and having to maintain and indemnify and all of that, it's not a way for us to operate. It's been a constantly moving target since this plan was conceived many years ago, before most any of us were involved. And it sounds like it's time to set the cycle track on the shelf and move forward with this water main. This is a critical piece of infrastructure, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say it breaks every month or two. And it shuts down a number of businesses up and down Burlington. The valves don't work anymore. It's a fire suppression issue. Like, this needs to happen. And I think, given that we might see a change in a couple weeks, I think we go ahead and, in principle, say go ahead and get started. And then when the final numbers come in with the water master plan, we look at those and give the full green light, or we make the decision at that point. But I think we get going as soon as we possibly can on this. Any comments on that? Yes, sir.
I agree with what's been said. I've been excited about the concept of this cycle track. It's disappointing. It doesn't seem feasible with MoDOT. I'm hoping we can find a different street, another place in North Kansas City to run a substantial north-south cycle track shared use path. So I hope we don't just entirely shelf that.
Yeah, and the costs have also ballooned over the years as well. There were grants in play that weren't even partially covering the entire cost of the project. And I think there are better options. Further questions? Do we want to give direction to move forward? Again, do we need a vote of some kind, or do we need
Get a motion authorizing or approving task order 5 and authorizing the mayor to sign?
Who wants to make that one?
I move that we accept task order 5.
Second.
Is that sufficient for what we need? Good enough? I'll sign it. Cool. All right. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Item passes. Thank you. Item 10.
Discussion of recommended personnel manual updates.
this going to be Mike or Casey?
I'm
or-
gonna start out.
Okay.
This is mainly Casey, but because of one section in here, I wanted to address that part, not instead of putting Casey in that position. She'll take care of the 17 other items as part of this recommended change. But one thing that I wanted to bring up, there's contradiction right now between the personnel policy and city code. There has been since 2013. So really, this is about which way council wants it to go, so we can make a match. I mean, that's, right now, city code says that as happened with the fire chief selection last summer, that the council appoints, promotes, or disciplines, discharge all department directors. The personnel policy since 2013 has said that the city administrator appoints all full-time employees. I'm paraphrasing here, with the exception of the city attorney, the judge, and the city councilor. Now, to be clear, code trumps policy set by resolution. So that's why we're bringing this tonight, is just to, which way do you want it to be, and we'll make it so.
Very good. So I guess what we're looking at now is ideas from the governing body, how we want to rectify this. We've done, and there's a list dating back to 2015. We've hired a number that were done by the city administrator. I think there's a philosophical difference in the way things were run at the time. City administrator put this hiring group together and then would recommend to the city council. Or did they not even get recommended to the city? They were just hired?
I think they were brought for approval, basically.
Okay.
It was.
Did we vote for Chief Freeman? Was that a thing?
No.
No, I think, yeah, because I don't know.
No.
I don't know. Yeah, a clean sweep. And then from 2021 and 22, when Kim was acting city administrator, it was brought to city council for a full vote. And then the most recent department head was Chief Williams, when that was a full group decision and interview process. And so how do we want to proceed with that? And I'm open to thoughts and ideas from the group. I will also say that we as a group hire the city administrator. We interview, we go through a rigorous, lengthy, painful process to find the right person, and we have the right person. We have Mike Nichols, who we have entrusted with the day-to-day of the city. It would be my preference that we work in the way that when Kim was acting, that Mike would make the nomination, handle the interviews, gather input, and then put that to a vote of the city council to ratify. That's my preference. Yes.
Is that in line with current code, or is that in line with their policy, or is it right now neither?
That is roughly splitting the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in line with neither.
I agree. Well, obviously, we need to rectify the discrepancies, but I would like a version where the city manager is effectively in charge of all of those tasks. However, I don't want to remove the power that the council has to inform and make recommendations and potentially discipline or potentially praise, or, you know, all of those things that one person it would be responsible for if we said that's all that. I mean, I want to make sure that every council, not just this council, but all the councils going forward have the same power that previous councils have had in regards to department directors specifically. And the other employees that are listed explicitly that they're wanting to put under the city council. So municipal judge, city attorney, councilor, and department directors. I think that would be my version of what this should be. Now, Mike could still recommend and we would vote on it, and we don't necessarily have to be involved in all of the process, but I think that option should still exist in some form.
So what we run into a number of times is people who are applying with us also have other jobs. And so when we get into a wide open process, it becomes cumbersome for them because they're applying to leave a job that they might also want to keep if they don't get this one. And so it becomes a really tough way to hold interviews involving the entire governing body. And that's why, and I understand what you're getting at, because we want to have a say in what happens. And that's why I think a final vote, and perhaps, I don't know, Tom might be able to help with this, an executive session to discuss ahead of the vote, where we're not outing who's applied, we're not telling their former employer, soon-to-be former employer, where we can have that open discussion and then bring it to a vote for ratification. We could do something like that. Okay. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
A few thoughts here. I am in favor of sticking closer to how the code is currently written, where city council retains that right to appoint, discipline, and discharge department directors. You know, in a city our size, those department director roles are very public-facing and have a large impact on how the public is going to perceive our governance and the tone here, that type of interaction. And I think that should come with some accountability to the constituents, and I think that accountability comes through this function, how the code is set up now, where city council does have these certain rights here. I think maybe as a way to alleviate, sorry, I realize I'm touching my mic and there's a bunch of feedback in there. As a way to alleviate some of the, you know, Mayor, like you're saying, the administrative burden, maybe we could look at it on a case-by-case basis, depending on who we're interviewing, to potentially delegate certain things to a smaller committee or just the administrator in that instance. But I would like to retain the option and decide on that case-by-case basis rather than change these rights now, especially this could impact future councils years down the road with an entirely different staff and, you know, tone here. So I don't feel great making that change for the next group of people to sit up here.
Councilmember Saper.
I agree with Councilmember Fitzgerald on that. We're a small enough town, and we work together with people closely enough that retaining that council decision-making authority, I think, is important. Because the interactions of not just this council, but future councils, I think, is critical. And I would pretty much leave it alone as the code states at this time.
Further thoughts? So let me pose a hypothetical. Anthony wins the lottery. Not you, this Anthony wins the lottery, disappears to the Maldives. It's time to hire a new public works director. Is that going to be a full council action? Are we going to get 8 people in a room to sit down and mull through resumes, interview all the candidates like we did with the fire chief position? Is that something, I see head nods, I see head shakes. Is this something that's the process we want to have?
I think that is exactly what we should be doing. I think those are positions that represent very high level, big picture, setting the direction and tone for their departments. And I think that council should be involved in that selection. I think that the hiring of Chief Williams in that process, I don't think anybody who was involved in that would say it was too cumbersome or too much of a pain or we shouldn't have been involved in it. I think it was good. We also then got to know that person better than we would have if we'd have just gotten a name on a piece of paper and said, here, vote for, approve this. I would rather talk to the people and hear what they think about our town and their ideas for it so that I can go back to my constituents and say, here are our choices. Here's who we're talking about. What do you like? What questions should I talk to these people about? What are you looking for? And then we can help drive that. I know we can give that information to Mike or Kim or whomever, but I think that's our responsibility too. And I don't think that we should abdicate that.
What you said there about talking back to our constituents, again, this is a delicate process where people are putting their potential jobs on the line to interview with us. If we're talking...
But I think you can ask people for you can talk to people in a way of what are you looking for? What kinds of questions would you ask this person? What kinds of questions do you want me to try to tease out to get a better feel for who this person is? And I understand delicacy. I've worked at a university for almost 30 years. We hire people who still have jobs and don't want other people to know that they're applying for, the vice chancellor of whatever, because they don't want to lose their job at their current university. And I recognize that that's delicate, but also they're applying for a high-level position in a very important place, a town too, and it's up to the people who are in charge of making sure that the direction of the town or the university or wherever is going in the correct direction, and you just have to be involved in that process in order to do that.
Councilmember Bailey?
One of the questions I look around, and I think we have a particularly skilled council at the moment, but we are not HR experts. I don't portray myself as an HR expert. I think we should lean on people who will ask the questions that won't put us on the news for asking the wrong question. So particularly for hiring, I wouldn't want to give away the council's ability to block a candidate, but I would certainly be open for expediting that through the use of staff members who have a deep skill set in that. Certainly our city administrator, deputy city administrator, and HR manager. So I would certainly love for them to put the right character in the seat for us to talk to.
Councilmember Salinas.
I'd just like to know what Chief Williams thinks of the process.
How did you enjoy your interviews, Chief Williams?
I would say that I was lucky enough that, that I was here. So I really didn't experience the process from an outside person's, So, like what Mayor Smith is talking about, like keeping all of that, I don't know, private and things like that. That for me, that wasn't an issue. But I mean, it was fine. I mean, it was what I expected. It was a little different than I expected because it had never been done that way before. But I felt like it went well. That's all I know. It's just a different process than what I'd seen in 30 years. So that was my experience on it.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yeah, just thinking back to that interview process, it was a long process. I kind of agree with Councilman Bailey that we need to leave it to the people that is what they do. Human resources, maybe, I would think that they would forward us if we wanted to be a part of that selection, the top 3 people that they were recommending, rather than have us in the process from the very beginning all the way through the end. Like, here's a sheet of all the people that have applied. Who do we want to interview? I think that should be done ahead of time before it would come to us. And then we could make a final selection out of their top whatever after they do their process of background checks or whatever it is, questions that they ask, because that's what they do. So I would suggest that rather.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Just a couple more thoughts here. I think one on the comment related to potentially costing someone a job or uncomfortable. I think it's important to remember that I'll use our fire chief here as an example. All that happened during executive session, so none of it should have been public or privileged that someone was applying, interviewing with the city administrator or the council or however that does go down. So I'm not hugely, personally at least concerned about that concern. And I'll just go back to, obviously our HR experts would be involved. They were involved with Chief Williams when the whole council was, and we saw who applied and had information on the candidates and went from there. But just having that information, having the option as a council member to see that process and get to know and understand who is applying, and I'm going to feel much better appointing that person to be a representative of our community, the more knowledge I can potentially have for that, as opposed to just finding out a name, a few weeks into the process and say approve or deny this.
Councilmember Saber.
As I read the code, it doesn't preclude a lot of the active assistance from HR resources that we have. And so we have that, the technical aspect of it in that regard, and the code provides for that. And we should just, and again, I think leave it as it is.
Councilmember Click.
Just, I have never been here for any of these processes. So as the code is currently, just practically, what does that look like? So somebody made a comment of like, do we get the full pile of resumes? Like, council is involved from the very beginning, or it kind of goes through HR, and then at a certain point, council steps in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, when we hired Chief Williams, we adhered to the code. We were involved from the beginning of that process, and we went through, I mean, there was a culling of resumes, there was a culling of candidates, but we went through pretty deeply into everything they'd submitted. We interviewed multiple candidates. It was a pretty lengthy process with scheduling everyone to be there, as many people as we possibly could. And so, yeah, it was about what you described. Yeah.
So I think Councilmember Saper made a good point where the city code as it's written doesn't say we have to go through every single resume. It's fairly vague. It says we have the authority to appoint, promote, suspend, demote, and discharge. But that doesn't mean we have to do all of the nuts and bolts. It means that Casey and Mike and Kim can go through the piles of resumes and go, you know what, we like these 5, and here, take a look at these, what do you think? Yes, no. And then we get involved in the, okay, we'll set up interviews and that kind of thing. I think the code as it's written is loose enough to allow us to manipulate it in the way that works best for the body, but it's specific enough that it still allows us to intervene in situations where we think there might be a problem, or we think that somebody's doing a truly exceptional job and maybe needs to be promoted. We can recommend those things, and if you remove that power, then the only people who can do that are the people who were unelected and don't have that aren't tied to the community that we represent. You know, the town is made up of the individuals who we represent, and I think that we need to make sure that their voices through us are continue to be represented in big decisions.
Okay, so I'm hearing 3. You've been through most of these hiring processes. What are your thoughts?
I don't want to just, sure, it was painful. It's also a learning experience. I think the city administrator was probably the toughest. I mean, I think we were here till like 11 p.m.
We're doing that either way.
Yeah, right? Like, so that just happens. But I don't want that to be the reason, like, guys, don't do it. And Anthony, don't win the league. You're not going to win the lottery. Come on, man. Like, you know better. No, but I get it. All these things to be said, I feel like the code can remain. I'm still trying to figure out the issue. I know you're like, it doesn't match with the policy. I want to fix whatever needs to be fixed. But if it's, everything I'm hearing is like, let's not take the power away from the council. We know what we represent. But we still incorporate staff to say, okay, bring us the candidates. Or no, we want to see all 20 because this is a big hot button item. The news is all over it. I don't know. So I think keep it the way it is. But I guess if you like erase it, what?
We have to update the personnel manual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it.
That's the big thing, yeah. Is to
Just
make-
saying, we're updating the personnel manual to say that we're going by code.
And the struggle is,
We'll make the manual match.
Is that the motion that I can make right now so we can move on?
There's not.
There's more.
Dang it.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
The struggle is there's not a way it's been. It's been done 3 different ways over the last 3 or 5 years or so. And so we want to clean that up and kind of lay out the process going forward so it's fair to the next ones. Not that like, oh, well, it's community development, we'll hand that off to Mike, but for, the city clerk, we need to all be in the room, that kind of thing. We want to be consistent.
Okay, so this is like this is consistent with just department heads.
Correct.
Because we already know city administrator, if that were to come up for future councils, things like
City
that.
admin, judge, counselor, and prosecutor, like we all.
And clerk.
And
Yes.
clerk. And then that's not in the code, is it?
It is in the code, but it's not in the person. Casey's
Oh, it
going
is
to touch
city,
on
okay,
that
city clerk's
next.
in the code, yep.
We got to true that up from what, a year?
So what I'm hearing is we have 3 full support of marrying what's in the code and just copying that with the manual. Councilmember Bailey, I'm not sure if you were in favor of that.
The only exception I would say is hiring, is the ability to move quickly when to secure a candidate. Now, maybe we do discuss that on a case-by-case, scenario where we go, okay, we need to replace Anthony. What are we going to do, and how are we going to? You're in the islands, man. You're swimming in your money. You'll be fine. But that is the one case where I think we would want to possibly look at giving city administration some latitude to move quickly. Now, does that mean we completely abdicate, and do we defer in that exact scenario? Maybe that's the right way to do it instead.
Councilmember Alvarez, where were you on this one?
I'm actually kind of confused now, so
Perfect.
I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. Councilmember Salinas?
Yeah, I don't know either. Just fix it. I don't know.
Okay, just fix it.
Yeah.
What I do.
It sounds like, it sounds like the majority of those who have opinions are of the mind to mirror the code as the personnel policy, and then we operate from effectively what we did with Chief Williams and adjust if needed. Good? Yep. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, I feel like if we have the power to adjust as needed, then we can just.
We can make all this stuff up as we go. I mean, we can change this
kinda-
next time if it doesn't work out. Yeah,
We're in charge.
That's what we've been doing. That's
Terrifying.
right.
Yeah.
So we can,
Great.
but let's put it in place. Let's follow that for the next one and see how it works out. Very
Got
good.
it.
Okay, you've got some more
So
stuff.
the rest of
Yeah.
mine is much easier, I promise, but they're just cleaning up language stuff, and I'll kind of walk through them pretty quickly. If you've got questions, you can save them for the end, or you can just chime in. Basically, we need to add the city clerk and the city treasurer to our personnel manual to make it match city code. So that's where it comes in, so it's consistent. Council, yeah, that council appoints those two positions. On page 4 in the personnel manual, the HR manager is responsible for the personnel manual. I've been doing that since I started 6 years ago. It recently reported to the city clerk. She doesn't do that, and she's glad to give that to me. So we're updating that verbiage. Introductory period, we're just going to use probationary period for wording. It just seems more professional to me. So we're just going to go through the personnel manual and update and clean up all that language. Updated the performance evaluation. We do not do performance evaluations for every 3 months. We've never done that to my knowledge. So we're going to clean up that language. We do them annually. Under mandatory training, we are going to remove intermediate level, and I don't know what that was referencing in the personnel manual, and DEI training to clean up that section of what we actually do for training. We do harassment training on an annual basis. We're going to remove the other two. Performance evaluation, section 3.1101. Again, we only conduct performance evaluations annually. We do progressive discipline if needed on an as-needed basis, but we only do the annuals once a year. We are putting in a new policy that we're going to, a new program that we're going to keep performance evaluations electronically, so they'll be printed in the employee file and they'll be electronic. So I'm adding electronically into the personnel policy. Verbiage around adding all city equipment, emphasizing all city equipment being added or returned upon termination. And removing ID cards. We don't have ID cards in the city. We don't utilize them. Section 3.1701, adding in the verbiage around working remotely that wasn't updated when we allowed people to work from home and put in a telecommuting policy after COVID. 4.0105, salary increases for probationary employees. I just updated the verbiage around the example on how it works when a new hire is hired on throughout the year, so it's clean and they understand how they're going to get prorated amount when it comes around to annual. They get a 5% at 1 year, and then they would get a prorated amount when we go on annuals based on when they were hired in the year. So it's just cleaning up that language. Request for leave, it mentioned something in there about a form that they needed to pull offline. We don't use a form, so I'm just cleaning up that. Basically, it's just an email notifying myself or a department head, and then it gets to me for the FMLA process or an ADA process. Holiday pay, we didn't update Juneteenth for the, did you have a question? Yeah.
My question is on section 310.02. Have we not had DEI training?
We have had DEI training in the past. We did not roll it out this year.
Oh,
Just did harassment training this year.
Okay, and that's being removed
It has for this year, yes.
for this year?
Yes, yes.
Does that mean going forward as well?
We'll make a decision on an annual basis. Yeah. A lot of the harassment training actually contains the DEI training, what's in the DEI training. So it was kind of a duplicate, and people didn't like doing two different trainings, and we're not sure how things are going to go with DEI training, so we figured we'd just review it on an annual basis.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. We are on the holiday pay. There was a reference in the police section that they had 72 hours of AC time. It should have been updated to 80 when we added Juneteenth 3 years ago. So I'm adding that to reflect what they get for a balance for their AC time. Payout of sick leave. When an employee leaves, they get a partial payout of their sick leave up to 400 hours. Certain groups within the city get it rolled into a retirement health savings account. Certain groups do not. It's very confusing. We do annual training on it just so people remember that it's going to happen when they retire and where it's going to go and who's impacted by it. But there's a misconception about getting the entire balance that they have as a sick leave bucket rolled into this RHS account, and that's not the case. It's half of what sick leave they have. 100% of that gets rolled into the RHS. So it's a little confusing, but I'm trying to clean that language up so when I give them the policy, they understand how it works. And they're not thinking they're getting more than what they should be getting. The overlap with FMLA, it just had a reference in there to an HR director. I'm changing it to the manager, which is my correct title. The paid parental leave policy, there is a change here. We rolled this out 3 years ago. At the time, we allowed individuals to take time in blocks for staffing reasons. We are changing that it must run concurrently upon birth unless there is a department director or a city manager approval. Yes, ma'am.
So this is one that I want to talk a little bit about. I've got a friend who just recently had a baby, and he and his wife are splitting up their paternal leave. He's taking 2 weeks, she's taking 2 weeks, he's taking another, she's taking another. Where they work, they can take it in 2-week chunks. They can take it in 2 chunks, and it has to be taken within 8 weeks. I think that they really, they really appreciate the ability to split it up in such a way that no one person is doing everything for a month and then they go back to work and somebody else is doing something for a month. I think it's a really good benefit as an employee to have parental leave at all, but I think that allowing somebody to at least break it up into 2 chunks with a set time frame during which they have to use it is a better approach than saying you can only take it all at once. And I recognize that you have the exception where they can get it approved by a director or a city administrator. But I think that when you include those kinds of exceptions, it then becomes a situation where somebody might get to do it and somebody else might not get to do it, depending on the whims of a director or whether or not somebody thinks that somebody deserves it or doesn't deserve it. And it's so much better for employees and employers to try to be as lenient as possible within a policy context. And I think that you could do that by just being a little bit more, allowing a little more than just a whole block that gets approved by somebody else.
In this case, ours is 8 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
so it would match that. I mean, they could choose to, I suppose we keep the same boundaries.
Yeah, so keep the same boundaries, but say you could use it in 2 chunks, but they have to be used within 8 weeks.
Yeah, any amount within there. We're reducing from 12 to 8 weeks just because of staffing issues, especially with public safety. So yeah, it would still keep those same boundaries. Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting the sense that there are issues.
It's staffing. It's just staffing.
But I don't think that I don't think that you should modify a policy to address a personnel issue, a single or maybe a couple. You know what I mean?
Well, it's staffing based on not having enough staffing, and it's staffing based on the shifts individuals work. Not everybody works the same shift, so that's the difficult part. It's not It's not picking and choosing.
And
it's
this is
just
a
the
situation where
departments.
different
Yeah.
departments have different needs.
This seems like a broader policy discussion that we might put on a separate agenda and have actual input from the departments that are affected. Rather, is this something that needs to be changed and cleaned up right now?
No. Mm-mm. No.
Maybe we strike that item and have a policy discussion
Yep.
next time?
Yep, sounds good.
Councilmember Click?
Can I just also ask, you mentioned lowering the leave from 12 to 8 weeks.
We only have 8 weeks. 12
Oh.
weeks is the family medical leave, so they can take an additional 4 if they have it, yeah.
Okay,
Or if they
understood.
want it, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they can, yeah.
I was
what we're saying,
referencing that they could spread the 8 weeks of leave over 12 weeks. And that's where it was creating some staffing issues as well. So that's where we were looking at just making it 8 weeks over 8 weeks.
Yeah, so currently they could spread 8 over 12, but this would make it concurrently for 8, so that there's a planability around when that leave's happening. Understood. Let's have a policy discussion on that and land on something that's well thought out.
Yep, sounds good. Section 6.05, educational assistance. The first responder bill, I think the governor has signed off on that. That is a new first responder awesome education program that they're going to be given to all first responders in the state of Missouri. We'll make sure that's passed before we actually get that in the personnel manual, but I wanted to add it on here just so it's on everybody's radar. It's going to be dropped in right below or above our educational process. Travel reimbursement, we just wanted to add clarifying verbiage on how non-exempt employees will be paid. Travel time was a big issue in there. To and from conferences I get asked every time somebody goes to a conference that's 2 hours away, is this paid or not paid? So it's just adding some language in there that they're getting paid for that. Mileage reimbursement, we're just adding the verbiage in there since we have city vehicles, that if it's applicable, we're going to require them to use city vehicles to go to trainings and stuff like that. It's just cheaper than mileage reimbursement and somebody using their own vehicle and turning in gas. So if these recommendations are approved, and we'll pull out the parental leave part of it, I do have to send it for legal for review anyway, just in case there's any updates that need to be added to that. We use Spencer Fain for our employee handbook updates, and then we'll bring back a resolution, and we won't need to do the amendment to the other one. Any questions?
Any further? Yeah, Councilman Fitzgerald.
Just one question I had on here on a kind of a structural thing, and I wanted to be real clear. This isn't intended to be a reflection of anyone currently in these roles. It just got me thinking of why we had some differences here. But item 13, I think, we basically looking through this, I think we have the HR and finance roles are manager as opposed to director. And just going down the thought process of, those are two very important roles. HR, you're obviously involved with the hiring people work here. That's most of the city's expenses are people. It sets a lot of the tone here. And I think, finance, it goes without saying too. That's a huge part of the city's operations. So I was just trying to, I don't know the history and all that, to how we got to this, where those two roles are carved out to, not have that discretion where the city council has appointment, rights and that type of thing.
I don't know when that occurred, but as far as I look back, it's been manager. I think maybe when they were created, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have the
That's
history
my
behind it.
understanding, is when they create, the HR manager is a more newer position. These are newer positions. I think when they created them, they just called them managers.
Yeah.
Was the treasurer the one that filled the role of what the finance manager does now? Because treasurer is one
It
that's
was
like
a
randomly appointed by the mayor.
At one time, it was a full-time.
It was more of a robust position within. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah, just given the importance of those two roles, I'd be interested in, exploring, I don't know if it's a change in title or change in the policy, but basically matching those roles with the department, stuff where council can, approve and discipline and, all that, so.
I would agree with that.
Something to explore. We could probably bring that and the parental leave back
Yep.
next meeting with some thought behind them. Everybody good with the rest of the changes that we've heard? Very good. I do want to complicate things one more time because I had this written down and forgot to mention it. Scrolling back to the top of the discussion, we have in the code, the city council shall appoint, discipline, and discharge. Appoint we've covered, discipline we haven't. currently, Mike handles reviews, performance, and all of that for department directors. We don't. We do Mike's performance review, we do Tom's performance review, and even those, and of course Crystal, sorry, that's all kind of new. Even those, getting people to fill out the form has been like pulling teeth at times, just for Mike, because that comes to city council, and as of the last performance review we did for Mike, we had half of them within like weeks of it going on. So do we want to extend us doing performance reviews for every department director? Yes.
I don't think that's the same question. I think that discipline isn't, we are going to be reviewing everybody's performance evaluation and determining how good of an employee they are. I think that's still up to department heads and city manager and whoever is doing that now. I think if there is, I think that this code is worded vaguely enough that you could interpret it how you want to interpret it. And I think for me, that means with discipline, day-to-day stuff falls to day-to-day people. But if there's a big enough issue where, hey, somebody is doing something so egregious that we have to talk about it, then at that point, they can contact council and say, hey, y'all, we need to have an executive session to discuss what we're going to do about not Anthony, about anybody else.
Sure.
But I mean, so I think that it doesn't require that we get in the weeds and do other people's jobs who are more than qualified, better qualified than anybody up here to do those jobs, but it leaves it open for, in situations where things get serious, we can still be involved. If you take that away, we can't be involved in that. That's not our responsibility. It should still be, in some way, our responsibility, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
I see head nods. Yes, Councilmember Click.
I just want to say that was my understanding as well. I don't feel like I would have the knowledge to do like reviews. I'm not in the day-to-day. I think they're much more qualified to do that than we would be, unless something crazy happened.
So favoring what we would call a loose interpretation of the code versus a strict interpretation. Sounds fine to me. So we mirror it as directed. Councilmember Bay, yes.
He's pointing. Look
Okay,
that
sorry, I
way.
couldn't tell.
No,
Yeah.
it's totally fine. Yeah, I think what we're saying though is something escalates, bring it to us, so you're not just getting rid of somebody before we know. Because I want people to feel protected in their roles and feel like they've been represented in some way. I guess if we have something that's not just becomes personal or whatever it is,
Sure.
so there's more sort of voices involved. But yeah, because there's a lot of discriminatory actions that are happening today. So
Yep.
yeah, just things like that.
Yeah, and discharge, to be clear, discharge would still rest with the council. It's that discipline, that middle ground, but it makes sense what you're saying, that we would have some options. Okay? Any further clarification needed from the council? Anything else from us? Talked it out. Very good. Item number 11, and the reason many of the cameras are here.
Discussion of FIFA 2026 World Cup and Watch Party.
Who's taking this one? Is Kim?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am actually joined by J.D. Green with Northland Festivals. He is our subject matter expert. I didn't tell you that you were going to do this. I'm just kidding. No, you did. So the presentation was included in the packet. I'll be kind of going through this semi-quickly. There are some questions that we'd like to ask the City Council on moving forward, but with that, we're going to kind of provide a brief overview of what in the world FIFA 2026 is, talk a little bit about Go North KC, which is more of a Northland regional effort to combine a lot of our marketing efforts for a lot of our 600,000 friends that we anticipate descending on the Kansas City region during the games, and as well as kind of a legacy piece, which is rowing together, putting in a lot of these processes for a combined effort for regional marketing of all the assets north of the river. We do anticipate that being a little bit of a legacy piece that for consideration to move forward after the games. So one of the quick things we want to say is we have a lot of questions. We have more questions than answers. However, we have 345 days to go. So with that, a lot of these slides are given to us by KC 2026, which is a nonprofit arm. So there's the FIFA games, and then there's kind of the host city group. And these slides that I'm about ready to cover are provided by that organization. And it's just a little bit about what is FIFA 2026 here in Kansas City. It will start on June 11th, and it will run through July 19th. There are multiple games that are going to be happening here within the region. This is the game schedule. So a little confusing, a lot to kind of take in, but this is really what we are focusing on, and that is the games that are being hosted here within the region. Our first game is on 6/16/26, and the final game here in the Metro is going to be 7/11/26, and you're going to want to keep that date in mind, that quarterfinal. This is the match details, meaning how many games, what are we looking at, the number. So we are anticipating 26 days that we will be hosting outside visitors during the game schedule. This is a map of all of the game venues throughout the games. It's the first time that FIFA has ever hosted the games in 3 different countries with this many locations. So it's new to us all. They are kind of estimating 650 visitors over those 26 days. A lot of them are officials, a lot of them are contract guests, a lot of them are sponsors, media agencies, as well as the teams and all the visitors that we anticipate coming. What they are kind of telling us is be prepared for 2.1 million visitor days. A visitor day is adding up all of the out-of-town guests per day times 26. Kind of is the rough math. It is very interesting. They're having to do quite a bit of overhaul at Arrowhead Stadium, which is where all the games are doing. They actually have to strip all of the sponsorship. Think of trying to remove everything that has a brand name off of Arrowhead. It's pretty amazing. It's a heroic effort, as well as tickets, hospitality, and all of the support sites. They are going to be hosting a fan fest. This is an official FIFA. It is going to be done at the World War I Museum, and this is just kind of an outlook. This will be an official site. What we're going to be talking about is kind of what the local communities are going to be doing. There are base camps. We have not received what those will be yet, but these are kind of the ones that they are shopping. So quite literally, teams are visiting these sites right now, trying to get an understanding of this is where they would like to base camp. FIFA is incredibly diligent at their intellectual property, and what we are being told is FIFA will have people on site in the metro area looking for signs that break their intellectual property guidelines. So they will have people here, I hate to say it, being the logo police. We don't know quite what that looks like, but we are being told to please play by the rules. And their property guidelines are extensive and multinational. But it's really about names, logos, branding elements, sponsorships, vendors, promotions, broadcasts. So with this in mind, this is where it kind of comes into the Northland tourism effort. And again, this is a joint effort between Clay County and Platte County. And just to kind of give a little bit of perspective, those are the CVAs. Those are the Convention and Visitor Bureau authorized agents through the state. They receive state funding in a matching capacity. It's a dollar-to-dollar spend. So for every dollar that they spend, they receive a matching dollar from the state, which is why another reason why it makes a lot of sense for us to pool our limited resources together to be able to get a very distinct Northland presence, a united voice, and leveraging that dollar-to-dollar match at the state level. These slides are their presentation. I'm sitting here trying to do them a solid by presenting their information correctly. And I do hope I don't do a bad job here with that. But really the opportunity, these conversations began several months ago, almost a year ago, about when it was first announced that we were going to receive these games. And that is to kind of go, the Northland, a lot of people don't understand where these jurisdictional lines that we have up here, we kind of are this big area called the Northland. Just everything north of the river is kind of one big area. So let's lean into it and leverage that as Go North KC and not be too worried about our individual lines, but really think about ourselves as a united front. So brand identity, logo, one website, each individual city will have a presence on that, but really using all of our limited resources to drive our visitors to one site and allow them to explore all the amazing things to do here in the Northland. And again, that's where that legacy piece, which would come in for future conversation during future days. This is the Go North team. So it is all of these agencies are kind of rowing together. We are meeting collaboratively. We'll probably start meeting a lot more frequently as the games come closer. But this is, when you talk about Go North KC, these are all of our partners. And again, it's exciting. We have, both Clay and Platt have put out an RFP for website design. They are in the process of selecting that vendor. Our hope is to have that website kind of built out and allowed for the local jurisdictions to be able to populate that. It would be open to all of our businesses, hospitality, to be able to have a presence with that. They're going to be doing kind of some family trends, meaning if you were traveling here with a family, here are all the great things that you can do in the Northland. If you're looking for our breweries, they're looking at doing a brewery run, kind of a little bit of trying to figure out what makes us us and ways that we can connect all of our visitors to our vast resources. Another thing is kind of the Midwest welcome. We joke that we are Midwest friendly, and we feel like this is kind of a good way to do that. Partnerships, so the city is an actual participant in the Parade of Hearts, and I'm excited to say that we will be home to at least one of the hearts in 2026, possibly two. Details to follow. It has not been revealed yet, but we have been told that we'll be home to one of the Parade of Hearts. We'll get into the local artists here in just 1 second, but a big thing is we have that official partnership with the Missouri Department of Tourism for that dollar-to-dollar match. We are going through and partnering with all the chambers. Again, the big thing is a coordinated approach to the games and beyond. And with that, here is the logo with the Go North KC. We're going to talk tonight a little bit about the traveling watch parties and mural. So each community is encouraged to host a public, what's considered by FIFA a non-commercial watch party. And again, we don't have strict understanding of what that means. We have some loose. The KC 2026 group is hopefully putting together a playbook. It has not been released yet. That kind of has some guidance for local businesses and local jurisdictions of how FIFA is interpreting their rules and regulations as the games draw closer. I'm not sure if any of you guys know who Jeff Parsons is. He goes by Fearless Jack Rabbit. If you've ever gone through and seen the big murals on the hill in Riverside, there is a police officer car right there, and he has been remarking how much slower the traffic in front of his home is at the moment. We have contracted with him where he will construct these kind of traveling murals. Think of large-scale displays that you can do selfies and items with. He put on his poll. He has a very strong social media presence. He asked the public, I'm going to paint 4 FIFA players. Who should they be? They came up with these 4 in front of you right now. We will also have some of the Go North branding. So as each community hosts one of their travel watch parties, these will go kind of community to community. Speaking of travel watch, this is a very tentative list. I'm going to say that again. This is a very tentative list. But really, some of the coordination is to make sure that we are not hosting parties on top of a neighboring community's event. There's a couple of different thoughts for this. A, we want to make sure that we have the ability to market our guests to the next traveling party, as well as be very mindful of our limited resources. And I'm talking about mutual aid here, meaning we don't want to have a party with somebody else in the Northland that's having a party, something happened, and they ask for mutual aid. So we are trying to be very mindful of our schedules to make sure we are not overlapping a potential draw on resources. So this right here is a tentative schedule. Again, if you look, what's kind of being proposed is for Saturday, July 11th, for that to be the North Kansas City Watch Party. And this is where I start to turn to my trusted advisor to the right here. Yes.
One quick thing, is there a methodology to how this got set up? The reason I ask is similar to what you would see in March Madness. As teams are eliminated, I'm not sure if their fans are planning to head home. Us sitting at the quarterfinal level, could we have lost a good chunk of the visiting crowd by the time it gets to the North Kansas City Watch Party?
So some of the challenge, and I'll use the any given Sunday methodology here, right? It could be that we've lost them. There is a chance that that could be Team USA. Then you win, right? Then you win the population.
I love your optimism.
You know, I'm almost.
We went to
overly
shootouts with
optimistic.
Costa Rica yesterday, so. or day before.
Yes. So a lot of this is unknown. We do not know what base camps. Again, I kind of started my presentation with this. I've got more questions than answers. You guys are going to ask me amazing questions that we are asking ourselves, and my answer is we don't know yet. It could be that the quarterfinal game is from a team that maybe doesn't have the resources to have a large presence here in the metro. Could be that it's Team USA.
Do we know, and this is my ignorance with the structure of the World Cup, it also seems like it's changing a little bit, but do we know that the teams who are playing here in the earlier games, at least some of those are going to be the ones that are in the quarterfinal, or is it going to be possibly a whole new set?
We do not know who is base camping here yet. I know.
It just seems disadvantageous to be at the end of the list.
It could be considered that, but it could also be considered if those teams are in Texas, we are a short drive from Texas.
McGrone?
I think one of the additional concerns with being last is if you're higher up on the list, people are around for that whole month, potentially. They get introduced to a location or a neighborhood or a community in June. They realize, oh, I really love that restaurant. I'm going to go back there. But if we're last, they come here, they have a watch party, maybe they buy some beers at Cinderblock, and then they leave. They go back to wherever they came from. I mean, a lot of them will come from Kansas City, but a lot of them won't. And so I think one of my biggest concerns is if we're gonna do this, we're gonna spend a significant amount of money bringing people here. We want to get the most bang for our buck, and I don't think being last is advantageous to us. I mean, quarterfinal sounds great, but I think that there are other things to consider other than the bigness of that one game.
I mean, and nobody probably wants to necessarily go last either. Somebody has to. I'm just curious, was the order picked in any particular way? Was there
The only one that had, and again, this, I am unsure. I can go back to the committee and ask about moving dates. I know for sure the July 3rd date is an immovable one, and that has to do with the Live Nation location and the ability to shoot off fireworks.
That's fair.
Just
Councilmember-
that one for sure.
My thought is like this gives the community time to get excited about it. Like that could make more people want to come to the more exciting game, in the game that there's less games by the time we get to that point. So if people are buying in, which I think is the hope of like people who live in Kansas City buying in when all this excitement is here, then maybe people will be more excited by then and want to come participate.
It's a bigger game. I mean, there's more on the line.
During the bid, the fact that Kansas City actually even got a quarterfinal was pretty big. Yeah. I mean, when you talk to the Kansas City CBA, they were extraordinarily excited that they got the corner fight. That was something that was kind of almost gifted to the Metro. So.
All right. Councilmember Saper.
Yeah, I don't think our positioning is, it's a crap shoot, really. You don't know what you're going to get from it. My only concern goes back to transportation. How do you get people in and out, and how are they going to do it? And I haven't seen a credible plan yet.
That is a much larger discussion.
So
That's
I cannot talk from the global Kansas City 2026 perspective. From the Go North KC, that's something that we are exploring for the Northland. More details to come from that. But it's something that we are mindful of, our group. And it's actually, when we get into the locations, that's kind of one of the considerations, is the Northland's potential solution to at least Northland transportation, right? So I'll get a little bit into what in the world is a public watch party. Again, FIFA has defined what this component is. You know, it's a street festival or a festival that you may attend. Has food, beverage, vendors, cultural activities, festival-like environment. The accessibility component, FIFA sees these as a way to kind of keep that celebratory, even if you cannot get tickets into it. Because, right, there are going to be more people coming into this metro area than have tickets to the particular game that they are hoping to watch. What do you need for this? You need the game. The special non-commercial public viewing event license, and yes, that is a technical term inside of their user guidance. They define it as a public event that has 1,000 or more people that you are not charging admission to. And I'll get into that a little bit. The way FIFA defines this is you cannot charge admission fees, you cannot receive any sponsorships without their prior approval, and what we're being told is that I doubt any of those funding mechanisms would flow into the local municipality, and at this time it is very unclear if we could charge for vendor spots. And again, we have more questions than answers for this. And again, the committee had said, we got to start talking with our governing bodies at some time, even if we don't have all the answers. A big thing is right, you got to have the game. You got to have the audio and visual. We do not have, at least at this component, what broadcast quality minimums might be. So they may have, we have heard that they would somewhat frown upon if it was, let's say, an inflatable, an inflatable, kind of something that perhaps you would do at a smaller backyard party. There is also the component of, we don't know what time of day these games are. Would you be able to even see it in broad daylight? So this comes in. This is actually something that the Parks Department and ourselves looked at. This is the Insane Impact Max 169. It is 16 foot by 9 foot. You can see it. This is actually here at Mackin Park. They drove this in. What are the benefits? Is it's very, very large. It has an internal audio system, and it can be seen in broad daylight. This picture was snapped in broad daylight at Mackin Park. So it's battery powered. Yes.
That cost, that $120,000. Are we buying that?
The thought would be to buy it, yes. And it would be split 50-50 between the city using tourism fund and Parks and Recreation. So the city's cost would be $60,000 and Parks and Recreation would be $60,000. We have at least initially heard from other Go North cities that they would be interested in leasing it from us during their watch parties.
Okay, I'd feel like we need to have a separate discussion about when we get there about whether or not we are purchasing this or leasing it, because that's a lot of money.
Is it available for lease? No.
There are companies that will lease them, and the leasing costs range from $3,000 to $5,000 to $6,000 for that same size screen. So, I mean, that is a much easier pill to swallow than 120,000. Even if we would get a return on our investment at some point, I don't know how long that would take before a screen like that could potentially die or need serious repairs. So anyway, that is a different conversation than FIFA, but just something to keep in mind.
No, absolutely.
Do you see any kind of other use for a screen like this? Park department?
I think we could see it. I'll invite Victoria up. We see a lot of use for this here at the local level, from everything from movies in the park to other city events. Snake Saturday has kind of looked at this and thought this would be a nice asset for their particular event. Victoria, did you want to come up and? Okay.
So yes, this is something that Parks was initially looking into. You know, obviously the costs were like, yeah, can't do that. But then when we started talking about FIFA 2026 and could this be a shared thing with tourism, just thinking about, I mean, we don't do a lot of things right now that we would use it for, like other than movies in the park, but we could increase that. We could, I mean, we would probably pull it out whenever we could, really. So, because it is so accessible, it's all put together, it's one thing. You can see it in broad daylight, so there's no limitations on it, I should say. So,
Just how about weatherproofing?
It is weatherproof, so like pretty much during the year, it would just be outside and locked, you know, in the gated area. We would buy covers, obviously, for like the audio boxes and the battery. During the winter, it would be parked in a garage unless we were using it. But yeah, you can use it year-round, so.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
It might be too early in the discussion to have this kind of data, but I was just curious if we knew like typical useful life on something like these, how long they usually last.
I can get that for you. We do have some information on it. So it's decades, so.
Yeah, I don't want to get bogged down in the buy or lease this thing. Let's talk about the party.
The cost and all that could be part of the budget process that, you know, is a proposed project that would come before council and all that.
Sure.
So what we also need is festival expertise. And again, this is why JD is here. Look how happy he is. We could think of no one else, if the city were to put on an event of this size, would be Northland Festivals. They've put on 41 Snake Saturdays. They are easily the area's expertise specific to the Northland. And in fact, their organization is helping the Go North KC group kind of plan and understand what we would need and the finite resources for an event like this. Some of what JD is kind of telling us is there are only so many porta potties, chairs, tents, frames, desks, all of the things here in the metro area. And if we wanted to host a street festival, and that includes screen, that includes any kind of amplification, AV, what he is saying is we may not be the only people thinking to leverage this event. And if we were to move forward, we need to start moving very quickly on putting deposits down on items that there is a scarce amount of these. JD, did you want to add to that?
What I wanted to add was this was first brought to Northland Festivals while we were getting ready for Snake Saturday this year. So I mentioned it to the tent company. The advantage to being the last one is that's right during fireworks season where all the tents are already taken up. And so then I mentioned it to the porta potty people, and yes, there's watch parties being scheduled all throughout. You might want to get your contracts in. And that's what I brought to the Go North KC. And I love that name, by the way.
So given their expertise, JD and his group kind of put together that this would be, should the city council move forward, we're kind of envisioning a contract for services very similarly to what is done with Snake Saturday. And this would be the preliminary festival proposal or plan. It's kind of everything that you would see and expect if you were to go to a festival. I would like to note that that insurance is in yellow for a reason. And this right here would be specific to Northland festivals. The Go North traveling murals are kind of a separate item. JD kind of gave us in between 25 and 30,000. Again, these are preliminary numbers until we're kind of given the go-ahead. He can start to really put his pencil to paper and get a better estimate. One of the big things, again, why that name of insurance is in yellow is due to a lot of unfortunate public gathering events throughout the U.S. We are seeing that the insurance could be upward of $25, $50, almost $60,000. And again, that's something that's more in JD's expertise and wheelhouse.
Let me add, insurance industry is an interesting commodity. I did meet with the insurance the lady that is our broker. We had lunch last week at Chapels, and that's when she hit me with the 25 to 50,000. It's for assailant insurance, and I think we all know what that means. The current contract, I did go back to her and said, hey, these are the requirements we have in the contract. What would that be? And she gave me an estimate yesterday of 5,000 just for what we currently have in our Snake Saturday Northland Festival's contract. It's interesting. And this is her job, is to bring up the what ifs. And we do live in a world where we have lots of what ifs anymore.
Is it based on security measures that would, the more security we overlay, the more the insurance cost drops?
That would be part of it. And when we had lunch, one of the sites, which Kim will bring up here in a little bit, we had a meeting June 9th, and I had her look at that. She took pictures for the underwriters. And one of the things I want to bring up is municipal services. Anthony, you guys do a great job. I brought up that last year at the Snake Saturday parade, most of the intersections were blocked with snow plows and trucks, which are huge deterrents to some of the issues that we've had. And with Kevin and Mutual Aid, what they've done, we have a great system down here, and I think people want to copy what we've been doing, or what you guys have been doing.
So did you say 5,000 was her latest estimate, given what you told her? So we're somewhere between 5 and 60,000 on insurance?
It's all dependent on their breaking out what they now call assailant insurance. What we have in the contract is pretty much the liability, up to $2 million.
Okay.
And that's $5,000 for this one-day event.
I can live with 5. 60 is hard to swallow, so.
Yeah.
Continue.
So the last thing is the location. Kind of going around, 2 locations have been identified. One of them is Swift Street, and we're going to kind of run through pros and cons in both locations. Okay, no location is going to be perfect. No location is going to be, none of the ones that we present are going to be non-doable. So Swift Street, it's more of a street festival feel, minimal impact on residents, it benefits local businesses by proximity. It's got a solid surface. This makes sense if it's been muddy and rainy, kind of similar to what we're experiencing this year. We could actually incorporate the town square and the Armour & Swift corner. This is something that JD has been working with the owner of that particular parcel on as an opportunity. The cons would be it's got a lot of access point issues. This is stuff that Chief Freeman had mentioned to us. There's a lot of ways that people enter this street festival. And if you were to do some form of beer garden, what would that have to look like to address some of those concerns? Blocked roads, and you have heat island concerns. Again, if it's, remember this is July 11th, okay, how hot it has been. We could pull a beautiful 87 and somewhat sunny, somewhat overcast day, or it could be 197 because this is Missouri. It could also be rainy. So again, we don't know what we don't know, but we do know that this location would work for an option. Yes.
Have you identified any other possibility?
Microphone, please.
I'm glad you asked. The second one would be Mackin Park. Again, so this is actually kind of based on some feedback, and actually also JD had gone and visited with the city of Gladstone. Their festival will be in a park setting. Again, some of it is you get that park festival feel. You have limited access points. You have dedicated parking. Some of the cons could be impact on residents, again, so you're driving traffic toward the neighborhoods as an access point to this particular location. You're hosting a party, and we have no idea what time this game is. Is it a 7 or 8 o'clock night game? Is it a noon game? We do not know those details at this point. I think we've all heard of the festivals at the World War I Museum during a muddy time. If it's muddy and you have a party on park ground, there could be the opportunity that we are tearing up that park, and we would have to pay to have that surface fixed. By proximity, there could be very minimal benefit to local businesses. We just have as many festivals as we have had, and Vic, they do an amazing job of trying to incorporate local businesses. Really, once people get to that festival, they just don't seem to migrate out of that area.
So this is where I'm going to say I would rather us do it on Swift, Armour Road, downtown area, because if we're going to invest over $100,000 potentially in bringing people to North Kansas City, our only recourse for recouping any of those costs is sales tax, and there will not be any opportunity for much sales tax over in Mackin, and there also won't be any opportunity for people to really get to know the character of North Kansas City, which is the reason why you would want to bring them here to watch a watch party. Mackin Park is wonderful, love it, beautiful, but it's a park. I mean, it's any park anywhere. It's a beautiful park, but it's a park. North Kansas City's downtown corridor is unique to North Kansas City in this entire Kansas City region, and I really think that if we were to do this, we have to highlight that. We have to get people driven to the places where they are going to come back and potentially spend money in our town.
I will say that I agree. The damage to the park is going to be immense with foot traffic and stomping around. It rains all through the month of June, and it would be a muddy, chaotic mess in the park. As much as I love Mackin, I would point to downtown again for the commercial return as well. Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I would reiterate too, the proximity to the levee is also a concern. I mean, it's just right there. It's a key area to think like, maybe we could sit up there and watch something. So I think that would just immediately become a very attractive space to try to be lured to, which nobody wants to deal with. I know the levee district would get ahead of that very quickly, so I think we just scrap Mackin Park. I think it's a beautiful park, but let's keep it that way. But I do like Swift.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
A lot of good points already. Also, I think just being on a Saturday, there's probably a lesser impact to closing down Swift for whatever time of day this ends up being, so the benefit there, and also just the proximity to those businesses that people can go inside if we have unexpected, rain or extreme temperatures or whatever it is. Just gives us a better footing to be successful.
Councilmember Bailey.
JD, do you have any information from the local businesses, how much of a bump they see during Snake Saturday that we can kind of correlate this against?
It's all rumor because they don't tell me their books, but from Paul and Jax, I heard they cover one whole month during Snake Saturday. I will say this year. It was the first time we were televised live. They stole our tablecloths for the television coverage, so I went into CVS and into Dollar General to find, I ended up with sheets. I couldn't find tablecloths, but I was amazed how many people were in those two locations. I was 13th in line to pay for the sheets that I bought at Dollar General. So I've always wanted, I wonder what an impact statement of Snake Saturday would look like.
Very good. Other questions at this point? All right, carry on.
Kind of question one is, does the city want to host a World Cup watch party in North Kansas City? I hate to say it, I'm like, do you want to host a party? Do we want to host a party? And then kind of, if so, where? It was kind of the two questions we would like some direction on.
Okay, so I'll throw my opinion in the mix. I don't know how we don't host a party. It feels like an imperative. It also feels like it could turn into an NFL draft scenario where, given all of their restrictions, all of their nebulous, non-commercial, sponsor only, and I pulled the list. It's, Coca-Cola, Adidas, Hyundai, Qatar Airways, Lenovo, and then Anheuser-Busch. Are we going to see just a flood of Bud Light tents around everything? And so my concern is if our local businesses don't get a bite at the apple, and if we're not able to recoup anything through selling vendor spots or any way commercializing this experience, are we throwing out money simply for the factor of it's the World Cup and we want to be part of it? So these are things to consider, but the bump to businesses will hopefully be significant. I don't know what, given that smaller footprint downtown, if we could expand it down Armour and have a true street fest. Again, does that expand insurance costs, police resources?
So one of the things that we were trying to keep Armour open for is that Northland transportation solution that we would see as a way for people outside of our area to get to our street festival. Does that make sense?
It does to an extent, but we have parallel streets that could be uniquely set up for stops, 18th, for example, where people could then filter down into the district in a way that we intend them to do through checkpoints if need be. I'm no expert in this, but using Armour for transit seems like a missed opportunity when the storefronts and the pedestrian access can be so critical.
I think that we would be open to it. Again, we're just kind of, do we want to have a party? And if so, I think that the boundaries, I think I would want to get with public safety to make sure, and our insurance to make sure that it's from their perspective, what the impact could be. I think that we could absolutely bring forward more discussion on what the zone, the downtown area zone looks like at future discussions.
Sure.
And kind of how that district looks like.
Yeah, there's a lot to be decided, but yeah, high level, do we want a party? What do you think, Councilmember Clark?
Yeah, I think just the immediate sort of pros and cons that come up is, one, our positioning being July 11th, after Riverside being a fixed position. I mean, we're so close proximity to Riverside that I think we benefit from them hosting. People are obviously going to want to stay here and jog over there to attend that, because that's a pretty major area, a major draw, I guess, with where they're hosting that. And I think the advantage then is if we did host one, we could almost ask, pair up with them to say, what resources do you have? They're going to have to get all those things that we need, and it's a short jog over here versus from all the other locations. So that's just some things to consider that might be somewhat savings. I don't know how things work. They'll find a way to jack up the price, I'm sure. But yeah, I guess I'm just confused on all the rules are pertain to, say, like a subsection that says, here is the watch party. And then everything outside of that, we don't need to monitor logos and things like that, right? We're just mainly saying, if we map out, here's the perimeter for our watch party, everything outside of that is free game.
The logos for sure. So one of the things that we are anxiously awaiting, we have not seen this guidance, but KC 2026 is supposed to put out a small business playbook that's supposed to outline to our business community appropriate uses of logos. And if you wanted to use the official logo, here's your path forward and cost estimates. Again, that is kind of a separate, we have kind of received somewhat clear, somewhat opaque of what a watch party should look like. And the watch party, kind of for us, we cannot charge admission fees. We cannot have sponsorships. We cannot use the logo. We cannot use anything FIFA related. And we are very unsure if we could charge or recoup any costs from vendor spots. However, what we would hope is that we would be listed as an official watch party in the FIFA app. I'll be honest, that is the premier hope, is that if we play by the rules, we are listed as one of their events.
Do we know, I'm less concerned about using their logos. It'll be pretty clear with a giant TV there that this is what's happening. Terms like the World Cup, is that like the Super Bowl where you can't say, you can only whisper the big game? Okay, that's frustrating. And then I think to Councilmember Clark's idea, I don't think we're going to outsmart FIFA, but like, can we have the watch party in like the 3 feet around the screen, and then everything else is, hey, we're having an Armor Road Street Fest, and then have our own sponsors and tents and that kind of thing? Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to get slapped down by their legal eagles.
I think that one of the things, and this is something that JD has been talking about, is from our perspective, we want to make this as hyper-local as we possibly can, and that includes as many hyper-local businesses as we can. So some of our questions, and we have formally submitted questions, the Go North KC has formally submitted questions, especially about local libations and the ability to have them present at any event that we are sponsoring.
Right.
Meaning, is there the ability for them to prohibit?
Like, yeah, does the thing have to have a Budweiser emblem, but we can pour cinder block here? I mean, is that a thing, or is it?
We share, Councilmember McGrone, your concerns of, if the city is providing the funding, we want to be able to make this as big of an opportunity for our local businesses to leverage this event to their advantage. And kind of going back to what we said before, our Midwest charm, we feel like our advantage is the North Kansas City brand, is providing an opportunity for the visitors that attend this watch party to be able to experience North Kansas City in its truest sense, and that includes all of our local businesses, our people. I hate to say it, as hyper-local as we can make this. Some of the challenges are the questions that we have about this event, licensing, partnerships. They have a lot of words, and probably what Mayor Smith is looking at, that we've asked for formal clarification. But we're also not the only community. We showed that map of all of the other cities. All of those other cities and the surrounding cities around them are all asking the same clarification questions. So I get that they're like, we're trying to work through the back pile of questions. You know, for us, some of the things that JD, you know, we were saying, we would love for as many local businesses that want to participate in our watch party, wherever it was, because that was, you know, a conversation with the city council for us to get direction on. But we want as many local businesses to be able to participate in this local watch party, should the city council move forward, as possible.
Yep. And we'll want business support for this, because we don't want them accidentally getting slapped with a whatever FIFA fine for saying, hey, come out after the World Cup or whatever. I saw other hands. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yeah, especially with it being, our location being the last one on the list, I think it would be good for the hotels in our area. Maybe they would come, if we were last, and they would stay here rather than move right after the last or quarterfinals, whatever it is. So I think it'd be advantageous for that, for the hotels over there. You can get to just about anywhere from our city, because you've got the freeways going north, south, east, west. You can, I mean, I think it would be great to have the party here, because people could get to it from all different directions. And then also, like I said, maybe stay at one of our hotels, eat at one of the restaurants. I think that would be advantageous for our city to do that. I do have a question about one of the locations, like where we had the Children's Festival, had it during Snake Saturday. Is that still available, that location?
Actually, we're dealing with the same company. I'd have to ask Ian.
It's just a thought.
And the other part about going last is we do get to see what they got upset about at all the other parties. So we can see which landmines not to step on. Councilmember McGrone.
I've got a question, and I don't know if this is actually possible or not, but is it possible to find out like how much sales tax revenue North Kansas City got on Snake Saturday, like last year or the year before, like on that day? Because that would give us some kind of baseline from which to say, this is how much those people during that time brought in, and I think it would help us make a better informed decision.
I think we can kind of dig in. There are some rules around reporting of sales tax, and those are not our rules. Those are Missouri Department of Revenue rules, but we'll dig in and kind of see what we are within the rules able to report.
Yeah. We can extrapolate the month of March and then reduce out what
I
other
think
months
that
were.
looking at it through the lens of March would probably be
Ballpark figure.
Right.
And is it roughly the cost of this party? Who knows? What other questions do we have? Am I feeling the general vibe is that we need to throw a party? Very good. Let's figure out how that party's going to look.
And then, is it safe to say a downtown street festival, and we'll define what that is later? Is that an okay approach?
Generally speaking, that seems to be the
Yay sports
desire.
or
Yeah.
soccer ball festival.
Soccer adjacent festival.
Yeah.
I did want to just briefly, without belaboring, there are a lot of meetings. I mean, there are meetings upon meetings upon meetings about this upcoming FIFA World Cup. So just there's the Go North KC collaboration, Parade of Hearts, the Mid-Continent Public, or the Mid-America Regional Council. They are kind of taking on the regional coordination of the emergency preparedness for the FIFA events. There's the KC 2026, Northern Regional Council, and Clay County EDC. Again, all of our partners here. There are a lot of city-specific considerations. So we're seeing this conversation is the kickoff for your year's worth of FIFA-related meetings. Some of that's going to be signage. What does signage look like during these 6 weeks? It's probably going to look and feel a lot different. And what should it look like? And should we consider, what does signage regulation look like during this particular process? Rentals, court. You may or may not have seen that Kansas City, Missouri is looking into constructing a temporary holding center during FIFA, as they are looking through what does 650,000 people coming into a region look like. And you're having a lot of libations and festivals, and what does that look like? Emergency management, public safety, increased visitors traffic, and I love transportation because that's the wild card. That's really the question everybody is asking is how are we moving all these people about the cabin, understanding that there will be no parking available at Arrowhead. That is what we are being told. Do not expect to drive up to Arrowhead. There is no port in the storm for you there. So regional transportation, hyper-local in the Northland, and then regionally. So just topics to come.
Perfect. Yeah. I have a lot of confidence that the KCATA will be able to handle that. Any further comments, thoughts, or questions from the City Council? Thank you, Kim, for a very thorough conversation.
You did, JD.
Thank you, JD, for your expertise. Appreciate you. All right. Moving on to item 12.
Consideration of an ordinance regarding equity and inclusion committee membership and quorum requirements. Bill number 7924, ordinance number 9721.
I'll take this one. This one is, we've kicked it back and forth between us and the Equity and Inclusion Committee to formalize the quorum rules and the way that new members will be appointed. This is effectively cleaning up and making it an ordinance now. Do we have thoughts, questions, concerns on that? Councilmember Salinas.
So when I say we, it's a group of neighbors that I talk to. So they think that the EIC is ineffective. They don't like the idea of making amendments just to get what you want, so lowering the quorum to 4. it's not a good idea, especially if we want to open up the seats to our friends. Also, I propose that maybe we make it put in our feelings aside about how we feel about it. Maybe if we, again, go back to making it an ad hoc committee, and maybe this way people will feel more comfortable, maybe not being on camera. I think maybe that's an issue, I don't know. But, and we could also save the city some money.
Further thoughts or questions?
Point of order, what exactly, we have two items here regarding what exactly are they? And let's stay on those topics if possible.
Sure. So the ordinance's quorum number, that moves the quorum to 4. And the way that the seats are filled, there was a proposed language that was then cleaned up by our legal team. Effectively, when there's a vacancy, whoever is responsible for appointing that will look within their ward. If there are no folks in the ward, they'll open a 30-day period to identify somebody within the ward. If that doesn't happen, then at-large is an option. You can find somebody who has applied or invite people to apply from the entire city. If that person then fills that vacancy, they would serve a term not to exceed 1 year. I think from watching the meeting, that term would end at the calendar year end. And then, again, this process would open up again, seeking in-ward candidates first, 30-day period, and then appointing. That is the ordinance that's being put forth. And that is requested by the Equity and Inclusion Committee and discussed at City Council, ratified by the Inclusion Committee, back to City Council. So we need a first reading if we were going to go that route.
First reading. Oh.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
An ordinance, An ordinance amending ordinance number 9344 and amending chapter 2.50 Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by 1, amending section 2.50.130 membership, 2, creating a new section 2.50.131 ward vacancy and appointment procedure, and 3, amending section 2.50.140 term of office quorum.
I move that bill number 7924 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9721.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Salinas?
No.
Councilmember Click?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey?
Yes.
Councilmember McGrone?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
An ordinance, amending ordinance number 9344 and amending chapter 2.50 Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by 1, amending section 2.50.130 membership, 2, creating a new section 2.50.131 ward vacancy and appointment procedure, and 3, amending section 2.50.140 term of office quorum.
All right, moving to item 13.
Consideration of an ordinance regarding a request for an encroachment license agreement by Norfolk Southern Railway Company, Bill number 7925, ordinance number 9722.
Is this Tom?
Briefly, this is just a renewal of one that's expired where they have groundwater monitoring wells, monitoring the cleanup. It's obviously in the city's best interest if this get cleaned up. Norfolk Southern, a number of years ago, had a spill of diesel fuel, and, you know, MDNR, Missouri Department of Natural Resources, had them clean it up. And, you know, it's, as far as I know, it's been working and working well. But the term of the license agreement expired. And so we are requesting that the council authorize us to extend the license agreement. It also requires that they provide certain liability insurance to protect the interests of the city on the city's property. Please understand that this is all down in the PID area, in the railroad area itself, so it's not out here. We have a number, because of the city, just so you know, we have a number of monitoring wells in places you would never guess where they are. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. Or Mr. Sands might as well.
Any guesses as to where our monitoring wells are?
My driveway.
Councilmember Saper?
As I understand it, it expired about a year ago, the current.
Yes.
Are we exposed to any liability? Are they exposed to any liability for the interim?
Yeah, well, of course, they still have liability. They're their wells. They
Yeah.
just happen to be on our property.
But it didn't.
We brought this to you as soon as we found out
Okay.
that I found out about it. This is the first council meeting that I'm aware of. We could have even brought it to you. Anthony, do you have anything
A
on
little more context too. This bill happened back in the early 90s, 1990s. I think they're actually relatively getting towards the end of their monitoring period and
Okay.
working with DNR to start to close out the site. This extension of this is basically a contract they had, and now we're extending it, allows them to keep on that process, working towards that goal, I think.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the extension. It's just that I just wanted to know if we had incurred any liability by the lapse. Yeah. And if none, fine.
Right on. Cleaning up problems from the late 1900s. Love it. All right, do we have a motion?
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Norfolk Southern Railway Company regarding the continued use of certain groundwater monitoring wells in the city right-of-way.
I move that bill number 7926 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9723.
That
Second.
might be the wrong ordinance.
I'm just kidding. I have it all circled. I move that bill number 7925 be placed on second and final reading. I'm moving through this whole thing as fast as I can. Ordinance number 9722. Is that the one? Yes.
That's
Come
the
on,
one.
guys.
Yeah.
Second.
I have so many things crossed and circled that I'm just like moving through it. Sorry, guys.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Salinas?
Yes.
Councilmember Click?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey?
Yes.
Councilmember McGrone?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
I'm back. Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Norfolk Southern Railway Company regarding the continued use of certain groundwater monitoring wells in the city right-of-way.
Very good. Item 14.
Consideration of an ordinance approving accounts due and payable by the city through June 27th, 2025. Bill number 7926, ordinance number 9723.
Councilmember McGrone.
Yes. I should read through these more often because I found some fun stuff. And the most fun thing I found this time was we spent over $1,300 on first aid supplies. And $800 of that was spent at Hog Jaw Barbecue, and $284 of that was spent at Pizza Tassio. So I don't know what kind of first aid supplies the city is purchasing at Hog Jaw or Pizza Tassio, and why we spent $1,000 at both of those places. But it's on page, it's in the journal entries, it's page 3 of 13. So it's kind of towards the end.
It's in the visas.
It's
On the visas.
10, 5, 10, 70, 11. I don't know what line, I mean, it's on that page.
Here, it's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be the fire department. I would guess that was miscoded. Would be
So
my guess.
there's a lot of entries here for food, which is fine, because we do that at my work too, but there's no like code for we're buying some food. Maybe we need to enter a code, have a code for we're gonna buy some food, and not miscategorize it under first aid supplies or any of the other weird places where I'm finding food. Also, whoever bought first aid supplies at Maurice's, I'm glad that also got refunded, because that was a weird one too.
there Maurice's in town? Hmm. Yeah, it's 3 of 13, three-quarters of the way down the page. Yeah, halfway down the page. Good catch. Fire department, first aid, that does add up. But yeah, coding, more clarity would be useful. All right. Do we have a motion? Anybody willing to jump on that one now? So we got to pay the bills. Is that
First motion,
first reading?
first reading.
There you go.
Second.
All in favor?
Who was the second?
Tom.
Yes.
Bailey.
Okay, sorry.
All in favor? Or,
Yeah, I mean, just fix the problem next time.
yeah, okay.
Ah,
Yeah, so those in favor?
Paying the bills, yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through June 27th, 2025.
I'll try this again. I'll move that bill number 7926 be placed on second and final reading. Passes ordinance number 9723. And thanks for your insight, McGrone.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Salinas?
Yes.
Councilmember Click?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey?
Yes.
Councilmember McGrone?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Sure.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through June 27th, 2025.
All right. Staff comments.
So tonight we have some comments from Nick and Kim. I also want to point out that in the packet was a Northland Festival Snake Saturday report and their funding request. The request will be reflected through the budget process as we go through that. I think start with Nick.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So this past billing period, which would have been our June bill, was our last for the postcards. So the next bill that you'll get in July, if you get the paper copy, will come in a city envelope marked utility bill. Kim has worked on kind of a proof for a mailer that will go out next week, just to make sure that people understand this is not a scam. As I think, you know, any change that happens, we want to make sure that people get that communication. But if you have your last bill, go ahead and get it framed, and, you know, we're ready to move on.
Just a quick update that the Fall Citizens Academy, we do believe, is sold out. So we have updated the website. We are waitlisting and seeing how many come in for a spring session. So those who have kind of gotten onto the first cohort list, please check, if you're watching, please check your emails and respond that you are in. We already have a list of 20, and we'd like to have about 15. So we are waitlisting for the spring session at this point, which is actually an awesome problem to have.
Councilmember Saper.
This is such a success. Is there any way we can franchise this out and make this a moneymaker for the city?
So, you know, I did submit this for an MML award. Unfortunately, we were not chosen. But I did try to kind of say, hey, I think that our academy is pretty special.
Wait a second. We submitted this for an MML award and didn't get picked. What did they pick? This is incredible.
That will be announced at the MML conference.
I'm going to boycott just on that stance alone. Great work. That's incredible that we're getting. I mean, we're selling these out faster than Chicken and Pickle sells out the pickleball leagues, which is unbelievable. This is some people signing up to do a night class, and that's not something people tend to do. And you're bringing people in. This is unbelievable.
And we've got another opportunity. So just because you got waitlisted doesn't mean you can't join us at Bounce and Balance. Bounce and Balance is going to be Saturday, August 2nd. Yes, that is a little pivot there. Bounce and Balance will be August 2nd, and at Victoria's Place at the Parks and Recreation Center, it'll be from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's a little bit of a touch a truck. It's a little bit of a budget work session. Snow and Roast will be there, so we'll have some frozen treats because it will probably be hot, even though we're having it in the morning. We do invite everybody. We'll have all the departments there with their budgets in tow. We would love for anybody who has questions to come and ask us about them. Bring your kiddos, because we're also having a bounce house, and they can climb through the equipment that is probably in the proposed budget.
Beautiful. Any further comments from staff? Anthony? Nothing? All right, good. Yep. Councilmember Alvarez?
Just a quick question. When does the Citizens Academy start?
So glad you asked. It's October 2nd is when the first class will be, and they will graduate at the last city council meeting in December. It's a little Christmas present to everybody.
Nice. Very good. Okay, council member comments, starting with Council Member Salinas.
I just want to say thanks to George and Kathy for coming out. And just everyone have a safe holiday weekend. And Jeff Parsons, you got me.
Nice. Councilmember Click.
Want to say I hope we get this bike lane stuff figured out. I'd really like to have that as an activity, an option in North Kansas City. I think it'd be great. Riding my bike on the street scares me, so I get it. And then just wanted to say excited about all the upcoming events, and even outside of just North Kansas City. There's so much happening in the next year or two. Excited that North Kansas City gets to be a part of it.
Councilmember Saper.
I'm glad that the Equity and Inclusion Committee actually passed as well as it did, because it was long thought out, well overdue, and makes it a more functioning committee, which it really is now. It's starting to really hit its pace. And I think it'll be the kind of committee that we can all be proud of, as well as use as an example for others.
Councilmember Bailey.
I'd like to reiterate the appreciation for folks coming out for public comments. I personally am walking away going, okay, where is elevator and what's going on there? That looks pretty cool. So something I'll follow up. I've met her before, and she certainly donates a fair amount of her time to not only working here in North Kansas City, but working with mentorships for a lot of young people in the area. So I appreciate her coming out. Other than that, FIFA is going to rock the whole Northland and Kansas City in general. So you're going to be hearing a lot more of these kind of discussions as we go through it. So hang on to your hats. It's going to be a busy one.
Councilmember McGrone.
I'm really glad we had some good discussion about the bike path. I'm excited to get moving forward on it, very excited. But I am really happy that we're going to try to do it in the right way and just give it a little bit more thought. I'm also looking forward to talking more about the World Cup watch party. And Ken, thank you so much for all of the work that you've done to pull a lot of this together. I am excited about it. I know some of my questions sometimes make it feel like I'm pushing back, but I think that I think it's going to be a great thing for our city if we can make it a great thing for our city. So I think, you're going to do, I know, everything that you can do to make that work. So yay. And also remember this 4th of July, that fireworks are prohibited in North Kansas City. And please think of your neighbors and their roofs and their pets and all the other things that you should think about, and be a kind neighbor, and don't set off fireworks here. Go to Riverside. Go to the village of Oakview. Do whatever you need to do, but don't do it here. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Fitzgerald.
It was already mentioned, but I just want to re-highlight that bounce and balance in all of the budgeting events. That budget really lays out the city's priorities for the next year. So, pay attention to that. Be involved as community members. It goes a long way for helping shape what the city's going to do in the short term and the long term. And one other item, I want to do my best to not put my foot in my mouth here, But Northland Festival Snake Saturday funding request is on here. Snake Saturday is awesome, and actually I know y'all are here. I don't want to put you on the spot either. So this might be a better discussion at a future time. But if you've been on the council for a while, or if you're new, you'll see this. But every year we get a memo from Tom Barzee talking about the insurance potential issues surrounding the carnival aspect of Snake Saturday, and I'm going to poorly paraphrase, but the city has to indemnify the land that the carnival's held on, and the memo always mentions that it would exceed the city's liability, or could exceed the city's liability were something to happen. So I just wanted to kind of put that on the radar. It might be something, if we could have a discussion with Northland Festivals just to get a better understanding of how that carnival's functioning and the amount of draw it has, and I'm just kind of out of the loop on it too, so I want to learn a little bit, but it's flagged as a concern every year, and this is far enough out, I thought we might be able to talk about it this year.
Yeah. I love the idea of bringing something up before early March, when typically that's the thing that's on the forefront, so thanks for getting ahead of that. But let's put that on an agenda to talk about. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yeah, there was a lot discussed, but I want to start out with Kathleen Warman, I think was her name, her business and how complimentary she was about working here in North Kansas City and how well she perceived the codes department and how professional they were and how much she enjoyed working with them. So I thought that was a great compliment. Somebody came forward and discussed that. I also appreciate all the work that's been put in to the bike path. It's been going on for a long time, and I know there's a lot of work that's been put into it. I hate to see it put on hold. However, I agree with some of the concerns that have been brought up. I have the same concerns with the bike path, the traffic, and everything that was said. So I do want to make sure it's done right before we actually get into changing things. And other than that, yes, just have a safe 4th of July. Again, no fireworks in our city. Think of your neighbors and have a safe holiday. Thanks.
Councilmember Clark.
My laptop just died, so I got to go off book here. It's going to be a struggle. Kathy and George, thanks for bringing up concerns and proposed solutions. That's very helpful. I think we listened pretty well. I think we all had similar concerns. Great bringing that up so early. A tipping tilt-a-whirl is always an issue in that piece of property on the Carney in a box situation that happens at Snake Saturday. That's kind of part of the fun though too, right? What was the thing I was going to talk about? Hey, who's got a flyer? This is what she's like, I'm going to help you focus. But 7-Eleven, we've got the concert series going on. As the parks liaison, I'm here to announce that there is a dog-friendly concert coming up. Dog Lava's coming to town, 7-Eleven. You can bring your dogs on a leash. There's going to be pup cups, things for dogs, vendors for dogs. Come see it. That's all I got, guys.
Beautiful. That brings it to me. That's right. Yes. So I want to say thanks to the City Council for a very well discussed meeting. There was a lot of thought brought into this one, a lot of just good, thoughtful discussion, and pushing back respectfully, bringing in viewpoints, thinking ahead, having notes prepared. This is how you want to see a City Council functioning, and I appreciate that from all of you. Whether we land on the same page or not, I think it's good to have these kinds of discussions. My week, last week, I held a town hall to discuss the potential Royals Stadium development. I see some head nods, folks in the room. We had, I don't have final count, 70 to 80 people there in the reclamation room at Cinder Block, asking all manner of questions. That video is available on city's social media. I've shared it. It's also on YouTube. I would encourage those with questions and thoughts and reporters to reach out to that resource and watch that, because there's nothing new at this point. I met with a representative from the school district. We're looking to get a joint meeting on the books for the school district, the North Kansas City School District, and the North Kansas City Council to start looking at how we can work together, discussing things potentially like bike lanes now, and other matters that would concern both groups, rekindling that relationship. I don't think that two groups have met since I've been involved over 6 years. One time? I must have been out of town then. And then we had the first meeting of the Citizen Health Committee. This is something I've been very excited about. It was a energy-filled meeting, and there's going to be a lot of really neat things that come out of this group. Just as a brief overview, we have a doctor, a fitness trainer, a dietitian, a rep from the hospital, a rep from the YMCA, somebody who sells fresh produce, and a mental health professional as a group. We're going to see programs out of that group, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. A lot of this will be their announcements, but produce boxes offered to residents for free, and then medical testing to see what the actual impact of eating fresh produce over a length of time is on someone's health. We're going to have that program piloting real soon. Other ideas, walkable routes around town, and possibly a Swift Mile race. Real cool stuff coming out of that group. I also want to, on a little more somber note, we had a pretty serious domestic assault happen in our city, and the victim of that assault reached out to me to specifically say thank you to how our police department handled that horrible incident. She came down and spoke with the chief of police and Officers Ojeda, Detective Spencer, and also big props to Officer DeShepper for how each of them handled that. Officer Ojeda stayed with the victim all the way through the hospital and made sure she was doing okay. Detective Spencer made sure she was taken care of and found some housing options, and DeShepper helped with that. So huge props to our police department for handling a very difficult situation, and thank you for your leadership of that group as well. And on a happy note, happy 4th of July weekend upcoming. I'll also echo, and I'll sound like an old man again, it's illegal to shoot off fireworks here. Don't do it, please. I'll take all the heat on social media. That's fine. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe. That's all from me. Item 18.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute Section 610.021, 2, real estate matters, and Section 610.021, potential litigation. Real estate matter, potential litigation, real estate matter.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Salinas?
Yes.
Councilmember Click? Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey?
Yes.
Councilmember McGrone?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Oh, I forgot the thing. At this time, there will be no more city business, and Channel 2 will be cut off. Thank you.